Yes. All right, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for September 4th to order at 8:30 a.m. We have all members present except for Larry and Terry. And if Larry was going to try and call in, so if he does, then we, at that time, we'll make a motion to allow him to do that. Minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion for the August 7th minutes. John and Carolyn, any concerns or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comment?
We have none. Last call.
Anyone? No? Member comments? No? I have one real quick member comment. Just wanted to get an idea from the committee. So we've been having some issues, and it comes up not every month, but several times a year where because there's a lot of things that flow into this committee that happen right before our committee at other committees, we always have issues with items that are on our agenda that never went through the committee prior to. And so then we're having to deal with it because it's on our agenda, so then we have to do something with it, right? So I guess my question is would the committee be interested, similar to our board meetings where we adopt the agenda, so we could just take things off the agenda without actually having to deal with it at the beginning before we get through with the agenda. So we could add that as a mechanism by which to remove things that didn't pass the other committees or are delayed or whatever. Or like in this case, we have, you know, I'm being asked to do something with 7.5 today, where we could just simply, at the beginning of the agenda, before we adopt it, just remove it and not have to actually take a vote on individual items. So it's just a thought process of a way to help with all that. Didn't know if you were in favor or not in favor, don't care.
I'm fine with that. I'd be fine.
Yeah.
Because we do run into that quite a bit.
We do, but, so I'll talk to you about how to.
Also, like, if it isn't this one is different, but if it is one that didn't go through another committee because of timing, I can always stick it up top under new business for you, just to highlight that it is separate from it did not go through another committee.
Let's have that discussion and we can figure it out. But if you guys are okay with that thought process, then that would be okay. Are there any other member comments?
Could I speak to that for a second?
Heck yeah.
I mean, I think that there are times where things need to be weighed in on in a timely fashion and don't necessarily always get to go through another committee or what the committee would normally be. So I mean, new and unfinished business would be, I think, appropriate for that and would be up to the chair to add that to the agenda if need be.
Yes, and that I'm not worried about, but like, you know, again, like 7.5 today, I'm being asked to remove and send it to the October meeting because it wasn't ready. So that would, case in point, but I agree with you, yes. Okay, routine consent agenda. So 7.5 I'd like to remove. Are there any others?
7.9, please.
Yeah.
7.9, okay.
That's mine too.
Okay, any others? Okay, if not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 7.1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10. Brian makes the motion. John seconds that. I'll go to vote. Brian?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. Okay, we're on to item 7.5. I'll make a motion to move item 7.5 to the October 9th meeting. I was asked to do that this morning.
Second.
Brian seconds.
And where's it? What other committee is that going to go to?
I can't answer.
It'll actually just go through here because it deals with economic development, and you're the oversight committee for economic development.
It's just that they're presenting at our board meeting and we don't have the document.
Yeah.
So there's no
R1 Planning Council will give you a presentation at your regular meeting in September.
Okay. All those in favor of moving that to the October 9th meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're on to, God bless you, item 7.9. I'll entertain a motion. Carolyn moves. John seconds. Go ahead, Brian.
I don't think that it's any real surprise that I frequently have challenges with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning for McHenry County. Not necessarily always with regards to transportation issues or items, but I guess I'm looking for some professional ideas, I guess, review, evaluation from our professional staff. And I know the chairman is equally involved in that a lot. And so I'm gonna really just kind of have an open-ended question to Peter, Scott, and you all to give us some thoughts about your understanding of the import of working with CMAP.
Thanks, Brian. So Scott Hennings, I'm the Assistant Director of Transportation at McHenry County DOT. Drew Duffin is our Planning Manager at DOT. So
You can have a seat. You don't have to stand if you want.
Take a seat, Drew. So that's a really good question, and I'm glad this was raised today. So this resolution is an annual item that DOT has brought forward for the last 2 or 3 decades now. The reason this is in front of you is because we have such a large region, and we are part of the Chicagoland region. Being such a large region, it's really difficult for our MPO, CMAP, to have a pulse on everything that's happening in every corner of this region. And so what they've done is they've had this program where they house essentially CMAP staffers within agencies throughout the region. So we have a CMAP staffer that is paid for by an 80% federal grant. We, the county, pay the 20% local match. And that planner, that professional planner, is housed at McHenry County DOT. They're a county staffer. They have the same benefits and everything else that come with a county employee. But their job, their focus of their job is really to ensure that the federal transportation dollars that our cities and our county and our townships get are adequately programmed. There's good decision-making behind those federal funds. And essentially they provide assistance to CMAP for our local agencies here. So they're sort of the go-between. I understand the concern about taking a closer look at these kind of resolutions on an annual basis, and we do that. I will point out the job duties of this position, while there's some mandated things that CMAP requires, and you can see within the contract what those things are, they take direction from DOT, right? So they're a DOT employee. Drew Duffin is the direct supervisor for this position, and essentially they do what we require them to do as a county employee, but there's certain things that the feds require as well. So I don't know if I exactly answered your question, Mr. Sager, but I'm happy to get more detailed if we want to get detailed.
No, I do appreciate your commentary. I think that's important for all of us to kind of understand how the fit is, if you will. I want to make sure, and I have concerns across the board in terms of transportation with regards to McHenry County's fair share of results, I guess, from participation in CMAP or other entities, not the least of which is RTA and Metro, et cetera. But I think that it's time now, as we're going through our appropriate reviews of the resolution and our budget process, that we just kind of get to a point where we all feel comfortable with the annual action. So that's the reason I raised it, and appreciate your commentary, but I'd be open, and I know Carolyn had asked to look at this too, so I want to turn it over to her or get anyone else's thoughts.
Well, and I'll mention one more thing that I didn't say on the front. If the county didn't house this position here with us, this position is still necessary somewhere within McHenry County, right? So whether it's housed at the COG, whether it's housed at a municipality, I mean, Lake, Kane, and McHenry, and Kendall house it within the DOTs. So the 4 collars that I just mentioned, it's within the DOT, because that's really where it makes the most sense. Because it's, again, the position is all about federal transportation funds getting programmed directly to projects within McHenry County. But other parts of the region, in Will and DuPage, they house them at the Council of Governments, right? So that is something that we, myself, Peter, Joe, have talked about over the years, and we're constantly thinking about if there's a better way to house this position elsewhere, if it makes financial sense to do so. But just keep in mind that local match needs to be provided by some agency, whether if it's not us, the COG, or a city, or whatever, you know. So there's different ways to sort of do this position, and we've found that this is the best way to just house it at DOT.
I appreciate that commentary, please, with regards to the return to McHenry County.
Yeah, we, this position, not only does it bring in the federal match that you see here before you today, but it allows our planning staff to do more actual work. And it really helps us keep the pulse on what's happening at the federal and the state level and the MPO level, because I can walk over and talk to this person on a daily basis, right? If they were housed somewhere else, that disconnect, that sort of distance between this position and myself and the DOT, I think would have a detrimental, impact on our connection with what's happening at different levels of government. So, me personally, I think it makes a lot of sense to be housed where it is. That's why we've continued to bring it forward every year for the last 20 years.
Thank you. I'm very satisfied with your responses and comfortable with it, so I appreciate the conversation. But
I just wanted more clarification on it as well, since I wasn't as familiar with it, so I appreciate you pulling it.
And I appreciate the time to explain what this position, it is unique. This is our only position at DOT that's kind of like this, that's grant funded. It's a quasi-county CMAP employee. So it is confusing, and I'm glad I had the chance to explain.
Thank you. Drew, any other?
I mean, I guess the one thing I would add is, in addition to hearing what's going on in the larger world, the PL is an opportunity. That's the position that's funded by this agreement here in front of you. It does provide the opportunity for more of a two-way street. Granted, there may be better ways to do that in certain items and certain issues that may come up, but in terms of advocating for CMAP to look at things that are concerns and priorities for the county, the PL is that direct link that allows them to become aware of what we're working on here, and from a greater pool of resources that is CMAP.
Thank you.
Any other committee members have questions? Okay, if not, then we'll go to vote. On item 7.9, John?
Yes.
Eric? Yes. Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. Okay, we're on to 9.1, that resolution that we talked about last month. We did have, Scott sent us an email with a completed data on it. I just need to pull that up. So I don't know, is someone interested in making a motion to approve, or do you want to have a discussion first, or what would you like to do? Anyone?
I will make the motion.
Ryan will make a motion to approve item 9.1. Is there a second? I will second, just for discussion purposes. Okay, so Scott, I'm going to let you go first because you provided this this spreadsheet, I'll call it, with all of the information from the other counties, which I greatly appreciated. Is there any comments you want to make about it, or?
Well, for the record, Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator, and I actually appreciate Alicia Schiller's work on this to help pull this together as well. It's important that you have...
Sorry, I didn't mean to give you credit then, sorry. Thank you.
I'll see, I'll just defer to credits too. This was, just for the purpose of background, this was brought to the committee, to Administrative Services, which it failed at a 3-3 vote, and then brought to this committee at the request of the elected officials to increase the salaries, and they can make that argument. So this is staff has asked to bring this forward, which we did. Just to to give you some perspective, the last increase that the county board provided to the elected officials was through a resolution in 2021. But that resolution does cover the current period, so if nothing is done, there's still compensation that's going forward, and this coming fiscal year doesn't include a CPI increase, which will go into effect. So there will be an increase. I'm going to make sure we point that out. But on this, there's a couple of differences. This has this is an increase for all the elected offices beyond what the 2021 resolution is. But I want to point out, if you look at the sheriff's salary, the sheriff salary is increasing from the statutory set minimum of 80% of the state's attorney's salary, which is set by state, which we've adopted by resolution, and that's already in place, to put the sheriff in parity with what the state's attorney makes. And it's about $216,000. This obviously won't go into effect until the next election, because salaries for elected office cannot change while then, elected officials in turn pre-establish that by a CPI or an index increase, which you've done. But these increases will not go into effect for any of the current elected officials, only for those when they're at the next election. So, but it does align the offices of circuit clerk, coroner, auditor, clerk recorder, and treasurer, to put them all in the same pay range. This is in order to keep that parity. So those are just a couple things we wanted to point out with this. This does include, as I mentioned, the sheriff on there with the parity to the state's attorney, but also includes the county board chairman. There was some discussion of administrative services to separate that, but the resolution reads and it keeps them together. The position I'll make, just from a staff standpoint, it's easier to refer to one resolution as opposed to two. Or three, or seven, when we have to, look at what the salaries are. So just from a convenience standpoint, they can all be handled in one resolution. So that is really the background we wanted to provide. We have elected officials here who can make the presentation or argument for the increase. That's obviously not on the staff, it's going to be on them, and it's obviously onto the county board for that policy consideration. But if there's any specific questions regarding the data or the mechanics, we're certainly here to field those questions.
All right, well, let's start off with committee members if they have questions. I mean, we did see this last month. The reason why we didn't do anything with them was because the information that you had provided wasn't 100% complete at the time, and we had just received it, so that's why we pushed it off to this month. But I'd be open to committee members' questions of the elected officials, or however you all want to move forward with it. So
I just have one. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
Or
John, please.
I just had one. You mentioned that under the current resolution, the one that's being rescinded, there would be an increase this year.
Correct.
For 26.
That's correct.
And what is? I don't remember.
It'll go up to approximately $117,000. Assuming a 3% CPI, so the
3%. Okay, right.
Yep.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Not for me. If you look closely at the resolution, my pay doesn't begin to increase until the next, so mine will stay static. If you look at the 21 resolution.
Let me confirm that.
Okay.
Same with the treasurer.
But, because you're not, well, actually, let me confirm that. If there's other questions while I look this up, we do have that available.
I just wanted
Go
to
ahead,
make
Brian.
commentary, I think, more than a question. I know, folks, it's very difficult for you all to come before the elected body here and say, we're hoping and we would like to see an increase in salary. So that's not an easy thing to do, and I appreciate you all doing that very, very much. I think there are certain realities that we have to acknowledge, and yes, there is a strong interest in trying to reduce the budget or keep it static, if you will, and I appreciate that very much, because I understand that budgeting is a difficult process, and it's very, very hard to find that sweet spot of balance, if you will, between appropriate oversight management and ensuring that we have the best of services. And I'm going to go to that point of services. I think the reality is that we always have to remember we do not produce anything. We don't produce Coca-Cola, we don't produce widgets, we don't produce automobiles, we don't produce anything as a unit of government. Our product, if you will, is services. And it is incumbent upon us as a county board to ensure that we have the absolute best individuals in the positions that we can possibly have. Now, granted, these are elected positions and the people make these decisions, but in order to be able to attract solid individuals who have the capacity and the background, the experience, the ability to really serve and continue to serve at the level of excellence that I think we as a county board not only want, but expect and uphold, it's really important for us to value the individuals at a level which truly attracts, but also, I think, stands up and says, these individuals are worth what they are producing and providing for us. And not just us, but the people of this county that we are responsible for serving. So I have no problems with the suggestions which are before us. I think it is most appropriate, and so I would put that out and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Carolyn?
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that our elected officials have been doing an excellent job. I think, and I completely understand how we are getting to this point. The difficulty I have is we're going to have some very difficult conversations coming up with the next in the next board meeting in terms of what we want to see, where individual members feel like we can make some cuts to meet certain goals. And since this wouldn't go into effect next year, I would prefer seeing where our board is headed with regards to our own budget and how this would fit into what the majority of the members are willing to support. I know we're gonna have that conversation, so I don't know if that just is part of that conversation next week or at the COW or the full board where we're supposed to be putting ideas on the table about what we would like to see removed in order to meet certain cuts that people are looking to do. So I guess I'm just concerned about putting something forward when we haven't had that conversation yet. That's my only concern.
John or River?
I personally would like to see them split up by position, but regardless, I did have, one thing is I'd want it not to be tied to CPI. I think a fixed salary makes sense. And then my questions were regarding A and B of the resolution. It says A says elected officials may choose to participate in any or all benefit programs, including but not limited to medical, dental, vision plans. Do the countywide electeds currently not have access to those?
They do, and that just affirms that they have access to it.
So there's nothing like new being added or anything?
Not in respect to benefits.
And then, is that the same thing with B then as well? Or is B new?
So are you looking at the?
It says McHenry County Board intends to provide
Yeah,
a
so
401(k)
that's
plan.
the board's, for the board salaries, that's not under discussion. I think you're looking for the elected official salary, the elected official resolution?
Yeah,
That's where they can choose to do that plan versus IMRF,
yes.
correct?
So-
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you, there you go. Yeah, the logic behind that is they could participate in IMRF, be vested in the IMRF under a tier 2 plan now, you need 10 years of service. So theoretically, that would be, 3 successful elections to do that. The board had said, that the elected official may not want to run for that long, or may not be successful in 3. So the option would be, instead of participating in IMRF, they can get a 457 contribution that would be currently equivalent to what that IMRF amount would be. And then that way they're made whole, with that benefit plan, but they wouldn't have to participate in IMRF, and if they're not successful, then withdraw their money or have to make a decision what they want to do with that pension.
And is that new?
No, that was put in place.
Sheriff Friend did that one.
Yeah, so that was also pre-COVID. I don't know exactly when.
Okay, so this is,
18 or.
Yeah.
so A and B are
They're
currently
that's
what's happening?
current language.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Eric?
No, I'd just like to see them separated, and I don't want the CPI automatically built in, or 3%.
Okay. John?
I echo what Carolyn said. We're looking at about a $3 million shortfall that we've got to wrestle with. And I think it's important to have this conversation in the context of that as well. I don't necessarily have a problem with the CPI. I do think, though, the salaries should be reduced by the stipend that's provided by the state. Whatever that stipend is, should be go into that calculation. And then, as far as our action today, I would vote yes, simply to move it forward to the board, so the board can have this discussion, because I think the board really has to look at the entire board has to look at this and make a decision on it versus.
It's going to the, it's going to the board either way, right? Because admin services voted on it.
It'll go to the board either way, whatever we vote up or down. Well, it's up to the chairman. Chairman has the directive of the agenda, so.
If we vote it down, it doesn't have to go to then it's up to the chairman to decide to move it forward, correct?
He has, regardless of what we do, he has the authority to do whatever he wants with the agenda. So he can put it on or not put it on, it's his choice. I'm not making that choice for him.
Appreciate that.
So, you're welcome to ask him, but that's, that's his thing, so. Do you want to ask him, or you?
Is it going to go on the agenda regardless?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
Any other, yeah, go ahead.
I would just say that I understand that the board certainly has the prerogative to establish the agenda. He's already made his statement that he's going to put it on regardless of our position. But I do think that the intent of the committee structure, and as we've established in our standing rules, as it goes through 2 committees, is to find out kind of what the tenor of the thoughts are within the board. That's the whole purpose of this. And so I think that it's good for us to vote, and it's good for us to kind of make a point in terms of what our position is. One committee has already done that. They had a tie vote. That's fine. That gives us a kind of a measure, if you will, of where we might stand as we look at this by the county board. So I think that we need to be willing to make our voice known and go from there. So I don't disagree. In reality, we know that the board is going to face those difficult, tough decisions in aggregate as we move forward. And so that's our responsibility, and I know that we're all willing to do that in our roles. But the question before us today is, do we believe that our county elected officials, who I would say have served incredibly well, in fact, there's hardly a meeting that goes by from this body or other bodies or the county board that is not congratulating our treasurer, for example, for the work that she is doing to bring revenue into this county, or our sheriff's department for doing this to bring revenue into this county, and the list goes on and on. So forgive me the others that I didn't mention here, but that is our reality. And so why would we be, I guess, reticent to go ahead and recognize that effort, and frankly, encourage increased effort?
My concern is this, and I didn't add, everything into this, but you're looking at, in totality, about $250,000 of total salary increase over time here. And my issue, similar to Carolyn, is that You know, when we talk about our $3 million hole this year, our $5+ million hole next year, you know, the board is gonna look at ways that we can close the gap at the 3 million. But some of the ways to be able to do that are truly one-time fixes to it. They're not long-term fixes. So if we choose to use these one-time fixes, which will help us through this year, it doesn't do anything for the subsequent years. And so, you know, versus the board taking long-term cuts this year, which will also impact future out years. So it's not that again, I appreciate all the work that the elected officials have done, but I guess I would like to see, I'd like to, you know, for me personally, I'd like to wait till after this budget gets passed so I see where the board is going with whether they're long-term cuts or one-time cuts or what they're planning on doing to fix the budget for this year. And re-look at this again in, you know, December or January or whatever time frame it is, so that we have an idea of where the budget is going. Again, it's not that I necessarily think this is Joe, I appreciate the fact that you brought this up and that you, I don't want to say you're the cheerleader behind it, but I mean, you know, because it is something that needs to be discussed. I mean, I even though you're elected, I view you as a valuable part of the county as far as the employees go also. So, I mean, it should be no different than any other group that we talk about. So, in that regard, I think it's great. What were you wanted to?
So, on that note, you have, it has to be more than 180 days before the November 2026 election to make this decision. So you don't have to do it now. It's brought before you now because of a response to the request. In essence, you have until April to consider this resolution and make those changes, which will be effective for those taking office in December 2026. So it's before you now, but it doesn't have to be acted upon today.
Correct. I get it. Did you want to?
Could I, the sheriff is currently speaking in front of Cook County Board on a wellness program, so he couldn't be here. But
We are a great replacement.
Wander. So we've been working with administration, I'm gonna pass this out, for about 6 months, and we were asked to join this resolution instead of bringing our own forward for the sheriff. But the truth is, you know, it's a different animal. So even 5 years ago, the state's attorney was making more than what the sheriff's making right now.
Sorry, you said who was?
The state's attorney.
Oh, state's attorney, okay, sorry.
And the market just wasn't keeping up, so the state had to step in and put in place the minimums of the sheriffs making at least 80% because that gap was growing so incredible. And when the sheriff was looking at what this means to the county and to him, you know, we knew it had to be addressed. We have, with our unions and with our command staff, and every time there's increases, it pushes them up, and it pushes them up closer to our undersheriff and to our sheriff, and we're getting squeezed. And if you look at what I just handed out, and those are your chiefs in the municipalities. That's their number of personnel, their budget, not sworn personnel, because obviously the sheriff has almost 400 people he supervises, that's just sworn. And budget that they oversee. And although they do great jobs, I mean, ultimately the sheriff's office is responsible for law enforcement in this county. And whoever runs for sheriff next, you want someone who's been in a leadership position like those chiefs that I just showed you, because they have the budget and the strategic thinking. But no one's gonna take a pay cut. They're not gonna to come and oversee a jail and 300 more people and $20 million more dollars. That's just insane. So we really felt, we took a lot of time to look at what his pay, not his, the sheriff's pay should be, and keeping it in parity with the state's attorney's office is very simple moving forward. It makes sense. as far as the role that they play in law enforcement in the county, and we really feel that this would be an important move to make for the future of this position. So I don't know if you guys have questions. I know you have time moving forward. I don't know if that's gonna change who's running for what, when, where. We're just more concerned about what that position looks like salary rise moving forward.
I just have one question. Is there any other county that does it that way?
I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment regarding your statement, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Everything that Ms. Salgado said applies to the county-wide positions. You know, Ms. Salgado makes an excellent point. And if you agree with that relative to the sheriff, then you agree with that relative to the county-wide officials. Why? Because if you value the law and order that the sheriff is providing, then you provide the revenue generation that my office provides. You value the security of our county records that the clerk and recorder provides, and all of the other auditing county-wide positions. You value the services that they provide. And these are professional services in which you don't get results unless you get experienced people, just like the sheriff has to be experienced. You are going to get results, not the best results, the results that you have to achieve to be able to move forward in the decades ahead. And it's the work that we're doing right now that puts that toehold in place. And if you don't value that, then you take one argument and ignore the rest. And what does that do for you as a county? Well, think about whatever you think is great about what I've done, or the chairman, or the clerk and recorder. You think that's great? Well, if you don't get the kind of people that we are in there, then you are not going to get those results. What does the world look like when you don't get those results? And what's the world look like if you don't have law and order? It's a zero-sum game not to address the professionalism and the value that all of these county-wide positions provide. And I also want to say, it's not about politics when it comes to professionalism that we provide, the services that we provide. It's about professionalism. This is not a political job, but it has political requirements. But it's not about being a politician. It's about delivering with management best practices, with leadership, with communication skills, with insight in what the future's going to require of us. And with that in mind, I just think that it's incumbent upon you to make choices that are professionally based in the logic you're going to need to make the best decisions. Thank you, Chairman.
May I add? Sure, go ahead.
So I appreciate all the comments so far, and committee members' comments, absolutely. I think when we talk about the concerns with the upcoming budget, while these increases don't take effect for 4 years, we do need to be thinking about it with this year's budget, because leading up to that third and fourth year, and we're taking a 3-year view right now, we need to plan for these increases in the coming year as well, and how that's going to be dealt with. And as far as oversight, and comments on oversight, and the countywide elected officials are the first line of oversight on the policies that the county board puts into place, and budget as well. So it is important for us to recognize that, and the amazing job that our countywides are doing. The millions of dollars that are either being brought in revenues, or the millions of dollars in savings, whether it's the clerk's office or the circuit clerk's office over the last decade, and reduction in headcount. These are valuable services that are being provided by our county electeds. And really, we're not looking it's an increase, but it's really bringing us up to parity for what the inflation has been incredible inflation over the last, say, 5 or 6 years.
Mr. Chairman, that's an important point, that what is before you does not affect this upcoming budget. It will not take effect until fiscal year 2027.
And as far as separating out individual resolutions, I mean, the resolution that's been provided to us, they are separated out. There's individual line items for each of the offices. There's no reason to duplicate and have 6 or 7 different resolutions coming in front of the board. So the resolution that's going to be presented to the board is going to be this resolution. There can be adjustments made one way or the other if the board sees so fit. But I mean, these are individual line items here.
Fair enough on that.
I'll finish letting the elected officials go before we go again. So I don't, Joe or whatever.
I appreciate letting me speak today. I didn't get a chance to speak at the last Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I was out of town or at Admin Services. I have a little bit of different perspective, a little bit similar to what Sandy said. I was an internal candidate leading into the auditor role. I started at the county in 2010, and kind of having that perspective really impacts this discussion. And it's similar to Kathy Keith's perspective as well. As an internal candidate, you are looking at what positions are here at the county, what financial roles can I lead. We are very fortunate to have someone like Kathy Keith who managed the financial operations of the circuit clerk's office with significant education background going into that role. As an auditor, I have seen the impact, but since pay has not shifted, and kind of some of the big points related to Kathy Keith's role as well, she's been in that role and has not seen increases till like this past year. Was it 15 years?
2008, my salary was frozen for 16 years, so
yeah.
for 4 terms.
And I mean, that is drastic. And she was an internal candidate. So now what we saw with the treasurer's office, we struggled to find a really strong candidate and could not find someone internal, because as an internal candidate, you have to sometimes put up a lot of your own money initially to run and to get into politics. And we can potentially go into some other positions here at the county. So a difference in maybe 5,000 pay or 10,000, because now chief deputies are starting to get close to making more than the electeds. And so it's not financially, doesn't make sense to run. So you have a huge knowledge gap of someone coming in external that does not understand the county. And similar, the county board members, we do get new county board members. It takes time to get up to speed. And we value board members that have been on for a bit to provide leadership on, finance and audit or some of the committees to help the newer members. And I know in the auditor's office, we work with every single department. We provide financial advice. We have to build trust on the audit side. In my role, I was able to, because I previously prepared the county's financial statements prior to becoming county auditor, I helped implement the county's countywide financial system that right now we are utilizing countywide to do business differently. We automated things drastically across the board with paperless invoice processing. We do not always talk about all our accomplishments here at the county, but right now in the treasurer's role, with her financial background, the type of candidates you need, they can make significantly more in private sector. And what you end up getting is maybe part-time electeds coming in from the external strictly. And we see this in Winnebago. Right now, the chief deputy makes more than the county auditor. And he does not want to run for the elected position because he makes more than and so they just have the county auditor stay in part-time in that role because they cannot find a quality candidate that really understands the political landscape, working with department heads and leaders. This is something that should have been paid in prior years. We are literally just catching up. So, and why now? They're passing petitions. They need to know what they're gonna run for. Yeah, we can wait. I agree with sometimes having more financial information, but this is a correction that should have been done many years ago. I started in 2018 and did not get a raise for 6 years. I started to think maybe I should have ran for some of the other leadership positions. However, I'm extremely, extremely passionate about what I do and the consequences if this role went to someone with less experience, less knowledge, and uses, weaponize some of these political positions, which we don't want to see. We want the power to rest with the county board members providing some of that political leadership across the board. So I think this is an easy decision and should be an easy decision for your board members and should be passed today. I think Brian's right. You guys need to make a decision and then bring it to the county board. Let the full county board vote. Now is the time to do it, and this is a simple correction to just bring us up to competitive pay with other department heads. We want other department heads to run for these elected positions. We want the chief deputies. I want my staff to consider running. If I'm unable to run in the future or do not choose to run in the future, I want my staff in my office for the position to be an attractive role for them to run. And I could bring you a million statistics, but they've provided a lot of it. And if you want someone with a CPA, I'm certified in forensic examination, certified in internal auditing as well, and risk management, which is really unheard of for someone with an audit background to be certified in all that. If you want someone with that level of experience who actually done the finances for your county and to continue with future electeds, this is a done deal to approve.
Ma'am?
Sure.
Okay. So I think in the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about accomplishments, and I think there's a lot to be said about what we've all accomplished in recent years, the millions generated, the millions protected, the millions saved, the things that we protect, $13.8 billion in real estate assets in the county is under my care. But this isn't about a merit increase. This is really about catching up and being paid the same value that the board agreed on in 2018 and 2021, to be able to buy the same amount of groceries today or going forward that we could buy back in 2018 and 21. Our peers, other department heads in the county, have kept up with that, almost mirroring exactly. The weekly pay, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the Chicagoland area, has actually exceeded that. So the weekly pay in that period's gone up about 37% with the cost of living, and the pay increases of our peers has gone up about 28%. And while, to your point, it's $250,000 roughly, you split that across the taxpayers, and you're talking about, less than $1 a year. And so as your job as representatives of those taxpayers and those voters, would you pay $1 to have qualified people to continue to make the same wage that they made in 18 and 21? I think they would. So I appreciate you listening to me the 3 or 4 times I've been here. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be at the cow. I'll be at a conference. Maybe I'll find a way to call in or something like that.
I would note, there's been significant savings because elected officials' salaries have been frozen for so many years. I mean, that should be noted as, hey, for those years and even pension savings, it's.
And we don't know that the next 4 years won't have more inflation in it. You know, so if we have the same kind of inflation as we had the last 4 years, we'll be working for half of what we were paid in 18.
Scott, I just have one question for you. The sheriff's pay is set 80% by statute, right?
Correct.
80% of the state's attorney. I know we can supplement from there, but my question is, on what you sent, why are all the sheriff pays different for all the counties?
That's a very good question, just to hit on it. The state statute says if we pay 80% of the state's attorney, then they'll match 66 and 2/3. So that's the incentive to get up to that level.
Gotcha.
Now, you can pay more and they'll still pay more, 66 and 2/3.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we'd be funding 33% of that?
14,000.
Gotcha, okay.
That's correct. And why they're different, we try to explore that, and we're not able to get a good answer whether or not it was a policy decision to not pay it at 66% or just the quality of data that we were receiving specifically from the source. We know we received their data, they told us this is what it is.
Right.
But we didn't get it.
It was just a general curiosity of mine. Oh, sorry, go on.
Doesn't it also, don't the state's attorneys get paid different rates depending on the class of county that they're in? Isn't there
There's two different, I think it's based on population.
Yeah, right, yeah, so that might have had an impact.
Well, but if you look at that, there's some that should fall within the category that we're in. So it's a peculiar question, but you can see most of them are in that alignment. So,
and then I guess my real only concern, Joe, I know you said it's just a cost of living thing, which obviously I agree with, right? We had 9% inflation 1 year, or 8%, whatever it was. But you say it's not a merit increase. I think we should. I think all the countywide elected officials have, I think, done an excellent job. My only concern with the CPI, right, is like 10 years from now, we're looking at everyone's going to be getting paid $207,000, assuming like CPI automatically adjusts. I personally would just prefer having this conversation every 4 years or whatnot, but so that's why I want the CPI out of it, but I have no issues with the pay increases for the countywide.
I think the idea in 2021 of putting the CPI in there was really just protection against inflation. Right, and it's not even that, because if you were running 5 or 6% inflation, it's capped at 3%.
Right.
So you're still, even if inflation was higher, you still would be losing ground on purchasing power.
No, I understand that, but do you understand, so we had the 3% inflation in there, right, to fight against the inflation, but then we're still here trying to catch up with inflation, so it didn't really avoid anything. We're still having the conversation regardless, right? If there's a year of insanely high inflation like we had 22 and 23, we're just gonna be back here. But if we don't do anything, everyone's salaries are likely to be $207,000 with inflation.
It's not like we're back every year, it's every 4 years, so there's a difference. It's not every year that you're coming back with this.
No, I understand. I thought I said that. If I didn't, I'd rather have this conversation every 4 years about what inflation is, what they've done with the office. That's just me. That's why I want the inflation.
Okay. John, you had your hand up?
No, he articulated it.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
One of the things that I've noticed as I've been out and about and talking to people, and in context, my sister's on the county board, and I just work with a very good friend who's actually now taking my position as General Livestock Superintendent with the State Affairs, and he too is on a county board, and so you talk as colleagues about the variations and the differences. I'm not sure we always appreciate the position in which we as a county find ourselves. I mean, it's easy to kind of do the job and keep working and moving forward, but we don't really appreciate where we are in terms of the totality of counties in the state of Illinois. But McHenry County has a lot to be proud of. We are financially stable. One of what, 3 counties within Illinois that are financially stable. And it's because of the questions that we're asking right now and we're wrestling with, but that's almost unheard of in the state of Illinois right now. We are a county that has a reputation for resource management. Not only the resources of the community in terms of funding and finances, but also our natural resource management. We are a county that is considered to be a county that has tremendous growth potential. We're an upward moving county. You drive around the state of Illinois and you drive through some of the counties and you drive down the main streets of some of the communities that exist. And if you don't think that we have potential here, then you need to go and look at some of these main streets and find out what the realities of these communities and these counties are. They don't have the potential that we have. The question becomes why? Why is it that we find ourselves in this position of being a county that we should all be proud of and the state of Illinois as a totality group of counties upholds? The reason is because of the professionalism of this body of employees that serve. Now, I want to say, I hope we can say, that it's also because of our system of government and the way that we approach it in terms of oversight by the county board. Because I do believe that we have individuals on the county board who are very, very interested in managing the resources and the finances, but also ensuring absolute, total excellence in performance. And because of that, we have a wonderful reputation throughout the state of Illinois. I want to uphold that. I want that to be my legacy, that we have continued not just to maintain that level of excellence, but continue to improve it with programs such as our social assistance program with municipalities, with our investment programs, with our savings efforts. I want to continue that type of work. And in order to do that, we've got to recognize the performance of the professionals that make that happen. And I just hope that we're willing to make that statement and stand up and say, we are in a great position. And the reason we're there is because of the professionals that work for and with us on our collective, not just our county board benefit, but our collective benefit as residents of this great county. I'm sorry, soapbox, I apologize.
Well said.
Okay, committee member, do you want to?
Were you going to add anything more?
I can, but go ahead.
When I get up and I talk about the county, I think we do a great job. I just love our programs. I think I have a great deal of respect for everybody, our countywide leaders, our staff, the programs that we have been able to provide. I feel really good about what we do. And I've only been here 3 years, so a lot of this came before me, right? And I think staff answered the call. For a decade, we've had, except for the last 2 years, for a decade, we've kept our taxes flat. People run on, I'm going to reduce your taxes. I'm going to cut them, okay? But yet we've continued to build, and because of your efforts, and Kathy, I'm just in awe of you. You've done a fantastic job, and in the Sheriff's Department, all of you. You have had that great program for the election. And so anyway, I feel very strongly that we have a great organization, a great county, and I love the way that we work together. Here's my concern. We don't talk like that when it comes to budget time. We talk about taxes, how high taxes are, and I'm not going to raise your taxes. So we are, yes, I feel the frustration. I feel the almost anger in terms of how long you've been without a raise or whatever. But we're here precisely because we haven't been keeping up with our ability to fund operations. Yes, I think staff and our electeds have done a great job in reducing waste, getting technology to, as people have retired, we haven't replaced them. We have done fantastic work in that regard. And while there are some other places that we can cut, we know that we're 3 million short if we take the full levy and growth, because our levy extension can only grow by CPI or 5%, whichever is less. So unless we're willing to, say that this is worth it, not just for the electeds, but the great programs that we provide, we're precisely here in this situation because we didn't want to, because we weren't necessarily grabbing that levy over the last 10 years, maybe as we needed to make sure that we could stay stable. So our concern is, whether it's this budget or not, if we push this on to the next board 2 or 3 years from now, we haven't done the hard work of making sure that levy can support our future operations, we're just putting this on the next board, because I feel like some of it's been put on us at this point. So I'm feeling a little frustrated at kind of under the gun, but this has been created over a decade. So, and my concern is you've got almost half the board who wants to do a 3% cut. And so the same type of conversations we have every year in terms of retention, we talk about that with staff members. Absolutely it applies to our elected, countywide elected. You're professionals. You may be elected, but you're professionals. But we have this discussion every year, just regardless with staff. And the fact is, costs are going to go up. They're going to go up every year, because if in a business you pay your employees more because their costs have gone up. Now there might be some businesses that don't, but I don't know. So my concern is we haven't had that discussion about what this board is willing to accept. Not that I don't think it's warranted, I just don't know where this board is going to go. That's all. So I'm sorry. That's what
I concur with what you said. I would say there was a comment earlier made about not politics, but these are political positions, and we answer to our political bodies, which are the people who elect us, on the decisions that we make. And everybody has run or is running or thinking about running, if they haven't done the research on this, then that's on them, not on us, from a standpoint of what the job may pay or what they may be giving up in the private sector, et cetera, et cetera. But it is political. There is a political ramification to what we do. And Carolyn mentioned about tax increases. This has been a challenge for this board for the last 10 years. And where we're at with the $3 million today and the $5 million a year from now, that's been projected out since 2020, that problem is coming down the pike. And unfortunately, you guys have gotten caught up in all this now, as we're trying to wrestle with that process and what's going on, what's happening. I hope, and I don't mean to speak for you guys, but I would hope people will make a decision about running for an office based on what the salary is. I'm sure that goes into the consideration. But I hope they make it based on what they want to do, what they can do for the public, for McHenry County at whole. When I first selected for the position, I didn't think they got paid. I thought it was a volunteer position. I didn't realize board members got money. So I don't think that's necessarily why people get into politics all the time. Some do, some don't. It may be the case, but I think that we have to take this in context after the budget's done and where we're going as a board, what's going on and happening. And I just think making this decision now, we're spending money we don't have. I mean, right now we're $3 million short on our budget. So if we go out and spend another, and I think it's more than $250,000, it's gonna,
it probably is
more to that. we're spending money we don't have in our budget right now. And so now we just added to that 3 million. And there's gonna be other things that are gonna come up in the course of the next few months before we get to November that are gonna add to the budget for next year, unforeseen expenses that we all have to wrestle with. So we need to know what that looks like. And if we don't have to make the decision in April, then it doesn't make sense why we're trying to ram it through now when we don't know where we're gonna be come November, when it comes time to figure out, or after our September, frankly, after our September special meeting, because we'll probably have a better idea of what we're gonna do. Hopefully.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that because, one, there is the benefit of people who are running knowing what they're going to be compensated and might attract more people, whatever. But more than that, I don't think pushing it off, until we figure out, what our budget's looking like this year. I think it should be something that we consider with the budget this year. If we just push it off, we're just shoving it off. You can make the exact same argument then for 2026. You can make the exact same argument. We'll just consistently push it off. I do think the decision should be made. I think it should be considered with this budget because that'll affect other budget decisions. Maybe we prioritize this over something else. Maybe it persuades people that, to go for a higher tax hike than they normally would, or, whatever, but the budget should be considered holistically, and I think the pay of the countywide officials is certainly part of that holistic process. So, respectfully, I disagree. I don't think we should just push it off.
Yeah.
I think that's just kicking the cart down the road. That's why we're at where we're at right now.
Well, I think a decision has to be made. My point is that we need to understand where we land up now for 2020. This doesn't affect the 2027 budget. So where do we land up in 2026 and how do we get there?
No, I agree. But also, we're talking about, $3 million hole this year. What is it, five or six? Is it, that's on top of this, right? That's assuming we don't do anything with this budget. It'll be 5, correct?
Well, if we were to make,
how much do we have to cut? If we had to cut?
If we cut 3 million this year of reoccurring expenses.
And next year we'd have to cut 5 million?
No, we would have to cut 2 and 2.5 or whatever it would be.
So,
because it's reoccurring, that's my point.
No, for sure.
If we do one-time things, that doesn't help next year's budget.
Right, so I was, I know we're talking about there's a $3 million hole, but I think this board should be looking at it as there's a $5.5 million hole. And maybe we address it over 2 years, maybe we address it 1 year, I personally am more of a rip the Band-Aid off kind of guy, but either way, bringing it back to the salary increases, I strongly believe it should be considered with this budget.
I just wanted to, I think what I was getting at was more the decision today. I'd like to bring it forward to the board, the county board discussion, and look at it holistically with what we've got before us.
It's going,
And it's going to anyway, so that's my feeling. I wasn't necessarily pushing it off beyond that.
But we could tell the other board members, finance had a great discussion about this. Go ahead and listen to finance.
Robust, yes.
A robust, there you go. Brian?
Yeah, I would agree with my colleagues. I think that we find ourselves in these difficult situations or decisions today because difficult decisions were not made in the past. And so you have to kind of consider, I think, the budget in the aggregate context so that we are not repeating the missteps of previous bodies. We need to make sure that we are looking at today as well as in the future. And I think any elected official is going to tell you that the most difficult thing to do in that position is to make decisions for today that are going to be decisions affecting the future as well. That's hard because we have so many what-ifs out there, but it's still incumbent upon us to do so. So I'm very much in the position of let's make a decision as a committee today, let's move that forward to the board, and these will all be considered in the aggregate with future consideration.
Go ahead.
And the reason that I brought this early, first informally, to this committee and admin services, partly because historically it came well before the statutory requirement, but also because the situation that we're in from a budget perspective, and I knew that there would be this robust discussion, so I appreciate you folks taking it on. But I think it is important that we look at this budget with an eye towards the next budget with as much information as we possibly can. So that's why I thought it was a good idea to start talking about it sooner, and I appreciate that you have.
Well, and if we,
Appreciate you did.
yeah,
That's good.
I do too, because again, if we just push it off till after this budget, we're just adding to the hole for next year. So what are we doing? That doesn't make sense to me.
Sure. Thank you. You know, not only should we appreciate it, but we should value the courage that Joe took in bringing it forward. And that's the kind of courage, by the way, that politicians don't do. That's what leaders do. That's what professionals do. And that's what business people do. To hear that my colleague, Kathy, has not had a raise in 16 years, that is embarrassing to me. I was a county board member during that period. I'm embarrassed for me having allowed that to happen. It is not good business. It's not good management practice to put people in positions and then not give them any cost of living. Can you see doing that with our employees? Oh, sorry, you know, we got to manage our budget, so no increase. Well, you lose people and you don't get the best people. And sorry, but that happens in every job. You have to maintain cost of living. And it just is, you know, the world we live in, fortunately, right? We're not like, you know, communist China. It's like do the work or, you know, you're in the gulag or something, you know? And so it is good management for you to listen to, you know, how many years you didn't get
and
an
the prior
increase.
county auditor was with the same circuit clerk, so.
And to imagine the other aspect, and we're seeing in Cook County, where the clerk won't, they don't have a candidate because the chief deputy makes so much more.
Yeah.
Well, we're moving in that direction now too, and that's why CPI is very important as well. So it's your internal candidate situation, but it's your external candidate. How do you get the best people? How do you maintain the best people? And you can say, well, you signed up for this, Donna, so suck it up and just be happy. And I'm telling you, the future of this position is not gonna live happily. And I'm not talking about me per se. I'm talking about the future of the value that comes with this position. And so from an executive management standpoint, I'm saying to this county board and this county board chairman, you have to put on a business hat and make sure that the revenues are matching the expenses for the value you want to provide. And if tax cuts, you know, with the 3%, and now that good old taxpayer is going to actually see their taxes decline by $4 or $5, and because gosh darn it, you made a great job of cutting, as opposed to having a levy increase, so it increased by $4 or $5. You know, and you make that executive management decision because you're looking at it as a business, not as a politician, then all of a sudden I think you're making better decisions, not for today, but for today and the future. And you have to look at it that way, because I'm going to tell you something that you already know. County government has an important role to play in the value that we offer our taxpayers and in the lifestyle and the quality of living we have. It's tremendous. And investing in that appropriately is critical. And the leadership that you ensure is coming down the pike is also critical. And that's with employees, and that's with your electeds. So thanks for giving me that opportunity.
Okay, anything else by committee members? Anything else by the electeds? Or quasi filling in for elected?
No, but thank you for hearing us again.
Okay. All right, so we are on item 9.1. We have a motion and a second. So if there's nothing else, we'll go to vote then. Eric?
Yes for discussion.
No, this is moving this on.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm voting yes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we're on to 10.1 budget review auditor.
She sent the budget over.
I have it on.
No, it's not. She's got
Something over the.
Oh, she's got her slide.
She's got a slide deck that she sent over. If you want, I like looking at it on it. It's easier.
Okay, and it has one.
I have something to change it. Exactly the same.
I sent we converted into a PowerPoint as well as some information.
Not a single one.
I'll pass out.
Oh, thank you.
I just opened it up, so I don't need one.
Yeah, you can see it super large. Like, you got it. Here's, we also emailed the PowerPoint, but it's similar.
Friday, that. You are Thank you. This is from Friday.
Oh, those are just additional. Like, Kevin's still 166.
Yeah, okay, versus what, yeah, that's the, I think that's
Thank
the
you very much.
It was updated on Friday.
Thank you.
I think it's in them though, we're still somewhat. But I think it's question answered.
Are you guys ready, or? Okay, go ahead.
They have two.
I'm gonna present on the auditor's office budget. I appreciate the committee, sorry.
Somebody's computer.
Is that me?
Okay. Yes, it is.
All right, how do I change that? Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, great.
Great. This morning I have the privilege of presenting the auditor's office budget. It's very small budget compared to many other departments you guys review, but an extremely important function we provide for the county. And I'll go over that as well. So kind of wanted to first go over the 2025 highlights. Really big part of the year was processing a lot of the ARPA grant reimbursements. in our office, we get substantial packets from not-for-profits, businesses that were awarded money related to the ARPA program. And it's a reimbursement process. So we're getting invoices and making sure and comparing that information, making sure they actually paid out money as well. And we do have a lot of questions that go back with that, asking for more information. However, finance has done a tremendous job working with our consultants as well, but we make sure we get all of the information. One of the things we added is a procurement card transaction report to provide you with credit card detailed information, because before the county board and finance and audit was getting check registers, and it would just say we paid this much on this department credit card, we paid this much on this department credit card, but you would not receive that individual detail. Now you do have that individual detail, and it just gives more transparency on the financial operations of our office. I wanted to introduce, the last point is cross-training. I'm working on cross-training all my staff, making sure we all know how to do different functions in the office and even on internal auditing. I wanted to introduce Donnell Berry. We hired him as an internal audit program manager, and if you want to stand up, but kind of cross-training. He's new to the county, and he has his master's in forensic examination and working on sitting, halfway through sitting for the certificate in fraud examination, and had worked previously in similar organizations doing internal auditing. So we're really fortunate to bring someone on with experience. So I wanted to introduce him because he'll be presenting here in the future internal audits as well. But that's kind of part of the budget, is to make sure that we're getting the best and the brightest to provide value-added recommendations to departments. The next slide, internal audits. Recently we've added this Workiva internal audit software, and so we're working on really getting all staff up to speed on that, making sure reports are formatted so we could do the internal audit, type in our comments, and then generate the internal audit report from our field work in the system. It really has dramatically changed the way we operate in the auditor's office, and that the Workiva audit software also includes tips. So all now we're making sure every tip is not just tracked in some spreadsheet, it's tracked in this software, so we can turn the tip into an internal audit investigation, document it, make sure, because we have tips coming in person, in writing, through our website, through sometimes conducting an internal audit, and making sure that every tip is tracked, it's escalated. Yes?
I'm sorry, could you define tip?
So we operate the county's fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. Okay. So tip is just, it could be like a red flag. It may not net to anything, but it's something that maybe should be looked into or followed up, or concern about operations.
Internal and external? Or like, is the tips coming from
Yes.
internally and externally?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a vendor, if they're concerned about their interactions with county staff. It could be a taxpayer saying, I don't know why my neighbor is getting a homeowner's exemption. Even items like that. A lot of that, sometimes in that, if it's a homeowner's exemption, you know, we work with the assessments office to investigate that. So we operate that, but we want to document it as well. I don't know if you have any comments on that point. Not right now. We spent a lot of the year, and not everything has gone into internal audit reports, but working with departments on revising internal controls. We have one for next meeting with a department because we are brought in as a resource. Instead of getting a consultant to come in and say, hey, we want to do business differently with our financial operations. We were brought in with help specifically on cash controls and processes. That's a savings that we provide to the county. We have numerous meetings with guys on looking at the budget, what can we do? Because of my background and Stephanie and the leaders in my office, they see things globally from a county-wide perspective. They know this is how one department is doing it, this is how another department is doing it, this is best practice. Stephanie has 15 years in public auditing public entities like schools and governments. So we provide that. So we're planning on presenting more, summarizing some of that good work that we are doing. But it just takes time to sometimes report on all the things versus getting to the next project. A lot what we do, we let the work speak for itself versus always, putting it out. But it's important for the public to also know the work we're doing.
If I can piggyback off of that,
yeah.
I don't think there's a single week that we go by that goes by where we don't have at least one request from a different department, whether it's looking at their internal controls or a process that they have, or they may have an area of concern us to look into it and research and find best practices. And sometimes it can be something that we look into, it takes an hour or two. Sometimes it can lead to 10 months of investigating, and the more you dig, the more you have to keep digging because there's just all these things that don't seem quite right. So it's really hard to put that down in a report every single time we get those, but it does take up a lot of our time is serving the other departments.
Like I've said, I've been here for 15 years, so now having that experience of saying 8 years ago we did this, we did X, Y, Z, this is how we got there, this is why this fund was established, or having those documents and resources. Same with Carrie. It's invaluable, but does spend a lot of our time is providing that expertise across the board. And that's why what I see is one of the best counties is because of that history and the financial, and it kind of goes into too some of the duties, and we'll get to that, of the auditor's office. But that's kind of more, sorry, just flipping real quick where we're getting to that. Well, maybe I'll mention real briefly, because it kind of segues into that, is all of the auditor's office, and you see in the budget, is mandated by state statute. We approve before a purchase order is set up, a requisition. It could also be called. So if someone wants to buy something, we have the purchasing ordinance sets thresholds to do quotes. We just make sure departments are complying with the county board's ordinance and reviewing to make sure there's quotes, a bid process. And that, because prior to 2018, or prior to implementing that process, a lot of departments were asking for forgiveness because they did not comply with the ordinance, and maybe they didn't get the quotes they needed, but they had the invoice, services were procured. Now I think there's been some even further savings because we're making sure the ordinance is complied with. They are actually setting up the purchase order with the correct vendor that they put on the resolution. Sometimes there's mistakes in that they're coding it to the correct fund that they stated in the resolution as well. And then accounts payable, we review every invoice that comes through the county as well, and substantial savings with that, because many times there's duplicate invoices, or we're paying line items that were not approved per contract. It's hard to take the time to quantify every hour, which, every saving, and that could be done in the future, but it just takes staff time versus going to the next item and being efficient. So just kind of wanted to mention that, and internal audit is required, mandated by statute, but also we're a large organization. We need a functioning internal audit program, and me being elected provides that independence to audit elected officials on the same playing field as well. And so we have now, with the addition of Donnell, a much stronger internal audit function, hopefully as he's gotten up to speed, get more and more internal audits done. So going to auditor's office staff, we have 7 advanced certifications requiring up to 160 plus hours of CPE. So I make sure I get yearly training of 40 hours. My part-time staff, we've done 20 hours. We want to make sure we have the best and the brightest. And that does impact our training budget, which is still small. Since 2022, only 1 employee is no longer employed because she moved out of state. So we are maintaining, and that's important in terms of the budget. We want to keep our staff because it takes time to train new staff, and because they have the internal knowledge. I just think that's important to highlight. We also converted 1 full-time to 2 part-time positions, which saves on benefits. That's really cheaper to have 2 part-time, and it provides our office flexibility to kind of shift days if one person is, or we could have them move days, work extra evening to get extra payables done for the check run the next day. So performance indicators, these are some of stats that things have increased with volume, the expenses that we have to audit, employee reimbursements, invoices yearly. And we want to make sure we're doing a quality job. So all my staff are trained to kind of help out on that front, but trying to get every staff person involved in internal audit as well, because that has the biggest impact. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just want to mention that those performance indicators, they don't take into account any of either the fraud tips that we receive from either internally or externally, and they also don't take into account any of the requests from other departments for services that we can provide. So our workload has expanded a lot, even though it doesn't always, not everything is shown there.
And we were contemplating, putting even number of audits, but sometimes one audit can result in many, many hours, and it's hard to pick up in just one number. Do you count that as 1 or 2 audits or 3? Because we went into 4 different branches on that audit. So that's not necessarily a good indicator to put up there. In the future, now that we could track tips, we may add that on there. So 2026 goals, I'll jump to that. We're updating the county's fraud policy. We want to make sure that is up to date, refresh materials and training. And not our hotline, we want to also be promoting it and make sure that the public is aware of it. We do get tips on a wide variety of things from the public, but they hear about stuff from staff, they hear about stuff on the county is very much in the community providing services. So we want to hear if maybe quality of service is not up to speed. But the more that can be promoted, it just sharpens the county as a whole, because we and this board takes fraud, waste, and abuse very seriously. It's either not tolerated, but also provides substantial savings if there's waste going on. So we're looking to do education efforts on working with department heads over the next year further, because they, as we've seen with some departments recently, if they present, hey, I noticed something doesn't look right, we can properly investigate it, because a lot of times the scope is a lot larger than what they may initially see based on our training. So internal audits, we do risk assessment. We want to make sure our internal audits are making the highest impact to the county, and we also follow up on prior audit recommendations that are made by the external auditors, even grant auditors, and we're using our software. And I kind of talked about the Workiva software. Go ahead.
Do you want me to go through? Okay.
Yeah.
So for Workiva, I'm just going to mention a couple things really quick. There are impacts both within our department for internal audit, but also with other departments, and then also with the external auditors. So Workiva is a really valuable software, and we're going to be working more with finance on working together and having them use it as well. It can automate repetitive tasks that we do in our office. It significantly reduces the manual work, which then allows us to do more audits, which is nice. And then we can access it anywhere, and they have fantastic support. It's been amazing.
Are we getting a reimbursement for plugging them so much? Are we? No?
Well, it's funded by ARPA, so in the future, but it's kind of the heartbeat of our department. So it does have a financial impact, but this software is very nominal, I think, in terms of other softwares across around the county. I just wanted to mention how we have really transformed our department over the last year or so on the internal audit side, but also tips, tasks, requests, and then the county's internal control document that the external auditors use, documenting what risks are in department, what controls we have to mitigate those financial risks or operational risks. And that is now in Workiva, and it has, I can't really even describe how much more capability to document, tie what audit we did to that risk, put the control owner, notify them of changes. It is, and we're going to be meeting with finance here and sharing that. So, yeah, we're not even doing it justice on the benefits. And I just got asked to speak about Workiva to the other county auditors at the IACO conference. Another one is implementing it or looking into the software, or just having an internal audit software. So I'm presenting, got asked to present on that at that training.
Tricia, I have a tremendous amount of appreciation for all of the work that you and your staff have done in terms of broad range and scope of appropriate internal and external auditing. I also am very, very grateful for the fact that you've instituted the tip line. I think that's great, and I think that has provided us with a degree of assurance and insurance, I would say. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. So thank you for this. Your budget. What is it you want for the budget this year?
Yes. Our budget is mainly staying the same, other than we do have a supplemental request. We worked with Suzanne because these positions, there's been some changes and they hadn't been re-looked at in a while, so we went back through the job descriptions And we already made adjustments to Donnell's position prior to hiring him, but these are the 3 remaining positions that increased a grade. And we really want to make sure we're maintaining individuals and paying them a competitive salary rate. It took us 6 months to find a candidate that we felt would work well in the internal audit manager role, and we had open.
4 months.
Or
4 months.
under,
Yeah, anyway.
Whatever.
Significant time.
Yeah, significant, yes.
So your request is for reclassification, right?
Yes.
Of how many total positions? It looks to me like on the budget
3.
request, you've got reclass full-time 9E to 10E, keep going 7 to 8 and 9 to 10. I trust that you've gone through the review process with HR, and so this reclassification is provided as a part of your budget request, right? So we're doing it right now.
Yes, supplemental.
Okay, so as you look at this then, you have how many total affected employees?
3.
3, okay. And so each one of them falls into one of these groups that you have here, and that's why they're like
Yes,
this.
that's why they're split out like that.
And explain to me the results of that financially.
It's a
this total?
$10,000 impact,
Okay.
a small impact, but it's putting them in the grade based on their peers at this county organization and the tasks that
Right.
they are
and
doing.
so the HR department has looked at this, everything is good? We're all copacetic in that regard, right? Okay, any additional requests that you're making for your budget that are above
Not
and
this
beyond
year.
the normal?
Nope, our budget is the same as last year. We do a lot of our training remotely or here versus sending staff out of state. You can do things on the computer, and we have savings that way, but now we have even more qualified staff, so we need to make sure, so I didn't decrease our budget because we want to make sure we can maintain our credentials that have education requirements. And if we don't spend it, we give it back to the general fund. I encourage other departments to do that as well. And that's kind of partially why the county's in the position they are in, so.
Okay, could you explain then, on page 12, you've got budget requests and why? And so are you suggesting then that these changes of classifications are going to help you in terms of answering these particular requests or addressing these requests, or are there other things that you need to do to be able to meet your requests here?
So that's explaining why we're making these requests.
Okay, fine,
Yes.
thank you.
There's nothing additional that we're asking for.
Okay, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Yesterday, we heard a presentation about AI and the use of AI within the organization and different departments looking at it. Are you guys going to take a role in that process in auditing what they're doing with AI as far as those, like the circuit court is looking at robotic entry of paperwork? Will you be involved in that process to check everything?
Yeah, I am very, very passionate about AI. I've been meeting with Alicia and had a staff person at almost all of those meetings, and then I'm attending myself as well, because that is a unique opportunity over the next 5 years. I think that has potential to cure some of the budget gap that the board is looking at using AI across the board. And we are using it already in some capacity in the internal audit function, but it has massive impacts countywide. So I'm very, very passionate on the IT side, so I want to be at the front edge helping lead that, but making sure that risk in terms of AI is also mitigated. So, and I know the other leaders are looking at that as well. I wanted to be at that meeting, but had a doctor appointment,
No,
so I would have,
just wanna make
because
sure.
I'm very, I love your point.
Okay,
I'm right there
great.
with you,
Good, thank you.
so.
Other committee members have questions? No?
Thanks for
Okay.
listening. I know I've talked on and on. I'm just very passionate about what I do. And, that's, yeah, our budget's primarily the same, so.
So I
Other
just,
than the three position adjustments, which this is the process. The budget process is where you guys would like represented, so.
And then the Wikipedia will come up next year.
Yes, yes, the following year. And we're looking at grants for that. Because how much we do on the audit side is grant related.
You can just ask them to give it to us for free and you can be a spokesman for it.
Yes.
And then,
I think I should actually. They were talking.
there you go. All right, is it consensus of the committee to move the budget forward? Yes? Okay. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to the county. 10.2, Economic Development Fund. Scott, you have this one.
All right. Just a little bit of background for the Economic Development Fund. It originally was established as a revolving loan fund. In the 80s, the county received grant money, basically seed money, to establish revolving loans to small businesses based on certain criteria. One of that criteria was job creation. And over the years, and quite frankly, very successful loans, the money was lent out, paid back as agreed with interest, and so that fund really just accumulated. The county board made a decision, Mike, I'm going to call on you because I don't quite remember, I want to say it was probably 2016, 2018 or so, to end the revolving loan fund and take that money, which had revolved or had turned over enough that it became purely county money. We had no more strings attached to it based on the federal grant, and use that money for economic development purposes. So that's how the Economic Development Fund came to be. It really has been transformed enough, once again, for a very successful loan program. And now this is used to fund economic development efforts for the county. It is unrestricted by the county standpoint because, like I said, no strings are attached to it, but the commitment was to use it for economic development purposes. So it brings us to where we are today. And with that budget before you, we really have a couple key things that are baked into those numbers. You fund a variety of different economic development initiatives or organizations. The McHenry County Economic Development Corporation, that has a funding level of $175,000. What's unique about that, though, is there's in the agreement, and as you may recall, where the county, instead of providing them the $175,000 in quarterly increments like it used to, it is now actually used to offset the MCEDC staff's salary and benefits. So with the transition in the MCEDC director and the transition of their staff, there was a switch to move MCEDC personnel onto the county's payroll for purposes of just administering the payroll, which is a cost savings, and to provide a limited degree of benefits. And so that has happened. But the way this works now is, you see the personnel number, that is MCEDC staff, but that number is offset by your contribution to the MCEDC organization. Really, as we would run those numbers out through the course of a year, MCEDC would actually owe the county for those because they're paying fully for their costs. The county's not subsidizing their benefit or salary costs, so they would reimburse the county for this. And that's why you see there's a revenue component under intergovernmental, because they were going to actually, the salary and benefits will cost more than $175 for their 2 current staff. So that's a little bit of an anomaly into this budget. That is something that came about last year. And then when the county renewed the agreement for MCEDC, that was put in and formalized in this current agreement.
And just for the committee, MCEDC accrues those dollars that are owed, and then we cut the county a check to cover those.
Yeah.
So we're accruing that in the MCEDC's budget as far as a liability.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just a true up, I think, every quarter or so.
Yep.
So that works well. Others, organizations that are funded through this fund, National McHenry County at $110,000. That's an agreement that was put in place last year. We just made the first installment, and we have another $110,000 coming up for the 2026 fiscal year. That's reflected in here. The R1 Planning Council, the county is a member of that MPO for economic development purposes. We talked a little bit about the SEDS that you'll talk about next month. That is actually an R1 Planning Council document. Our contribution for that membership is $50,000. And the county participates in GSEP, which is the Greater Chicago Economic Partnership. That is an organization made up of a lot of the counter counties, driven through World Business Chicago, and it provides kind of a regional economic development approach to, for the collar counties, for McHenry County. And really the intent is that, it used to be a philosophy of Chicago at all costs. Now it's Chicagoland at all costs to help benefit all the collar counties. The county is a partner in that, and that agreement is going to be renewing this year. We did not know what the cost is, so the previous expiring agreement was $35,000, just shy of. We're waiting on that renewal to see what that cost would be.
And I was going to ask Chairman Bueller, but I believe the decision was to roll it for a year while they come up with 2.0. So I think they were asking, it's either 35 or 40s, but it wasn't going to change much from what it was this year. It's my understanding of what's happening.
I appreciate hearing that. I did not know fully. I know that there was, just yesterday received some communication on that renewal. I didn't know what the cost would be if it was going to stay the same. If it does stay the same, at $50,000, you're covered. Because it's $50,000 for GSEP, and we have a little bit for economic development incentives that the county committed to 2 businesses way back when for expansions that they did. And those are Canfield Farr and Jessup Manufacturing. Those are going to be rolling off, but they're about $1,700 in this budget. So that's what is incorporated into your contractual, or all those commitments that the county had made, or will continue. And then under commodities, that it covers meeting expenses and training. Meeting expenses and mileage, because with economic development, there is obviously that you have to have meetings. You may have to travel to businesses. That's part of the the promotion of the county. So there is a budget for that in the event that that's going to be needed. And then the final item is operating transfers out. This is really intended to go to Workforce Network. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, Workforce Network, and primarily Jake Rohn and Jeff Pointner, are really instrumental in the county's economic development efforts. They are meeting with our businesses. They are supporting our businesses, working directly with them. And then when we have a business that is interested in McHenry County, they're part of our business response team that would go out and tout the benefits of McHenry County and the programs that are offered. So they perform an economic development function. One of the challenges that they have under their grant, the WEO grant, the Workforce Opportunity Investment Act, is they are capped at what they can provide for salary and administrative costs. It's a hard line of what they can provide. So when they present their budget to the county and to Public Health and Community Services, that's noted. They can't exceed that. And they are fully grant funded through this federal grant. So the challenge is, as the county works for recruitment and retention efforts and tries to ensure that employees are compensated at a good amount to retain them, that affects their ability to administer this grant, because they bump up to that cap. So when you provide a merit increase or a cost of living increase, they hit that cap. So, and they've potentially ran into the problem if they didn't have any vacancies, or depending on how the personnel stacks up, that they, in essence, would run out of the personnel budget. So the intent of this is to give them a little bit more latitude, a little bit more headroom to let them meet what they need to do organizationally, but also to acknowledge that Workforce Network does provide economic development work for the county. So, so that's why that is in there. So all told, you can see the budget is reduced from FY25 appropriated. And we had a higher level for travel, for training, which wasn't utilized in the 2025 budget or thus far. So that was reduced slightly to bring those numbers down. And unless there are any questions on the actual numbers and budget as presented, I would like to show a model that shows you kind of where the Economic Development Fund is and ultimately where it's going. And I'm sorry to say it's not a good picture, but I want to make sure.
All right, well, let's first, before you show going forward, let's see if there's any questions about what's going on now.
Yeah.
Anyone? No? Okay, go ahead. Show the forecast.
Okay.
Just like all our other forecasts, this is great news.
Well, it lets you know the options you have available to you. So I'm going to share my screen.
While he's doing that, is it consensus of the committee to move that budget forward?
Yes, please.
Yep. Yes. Okay.
Carolyn? Yes. All right, you just I'm going to reduce this.
Her non-response was a response.
Her non-responsive was a response.
So this model really shows the fund balance of the Economic Development Fund going back to 2021. You see we started off with a little over $1.5 billion. And that was, as we noted, the revolving loan fund money that converted into economic development purposes. And this is what funded your economic development initiatives. It wasn't supplemented with any other revenues from the county or from other county funds. So you were able just to live off of this for so long. We get into 2025, this current fiscal year, and we look like we started that budget with about, where it looks like there's about a $402,000 balance when we end this fiscal year. But when we bring in the current 2026 as proposed, and this contemplates GSIP at $35,000, which is comparable to what we've been paying. You can see that we, in essence, are going to run like $13,000. We're going to run out of money by $13,000. So 2026, in essence, burns down your economic development fund. So you can cover this budget this year without a problem. The question is going to be for 2027 moving forward. If you want to continue economic development initiatives, you're going to have to find a way to fund those, whether it's through supplementing with other funds. If there's other sources of revenue that can be put in as a stream into this. So that's, I think, a decision point that I would like you to think about this year, and obviously we're going to tackle next year. I will tell you, MCEDC and Natural McHenry County contracts expire with the fiscal year 2026 budget. Certainly you can anticipate those requests will come in because they do provide an economic development function for the county. They are one of our 5 pillars of our economic development program. The other 3 being our municipal partners, with the Workforce Network, as we mentioned, and as Chairman Scala so aptly put up, our educational institutions, MCEDC, and our high schools that develop our workforce. But that is our economic development program. The county does not maintain staff that are actively engaged in this on a day-to-day basis. It is really performed by County Administrator Peter Austin and myself, and the aforementioned Workforce Network team. But we don't have dedicated economic development team for this. So in essence, it's a public-private partnership to perform economic development. So in 2027, when that request is made, the county can entertain how you want to approach economic development, but the question is going to be, where's the funding source going to come from? Because economic development funds will, in essence, dry up in the 2026 fiscal year.
Just adds to that number.
So So
You want to send that out? Would you mind sending that chart out?
we can send this out. There's variables in here. And what, like any model we do, we want it to be dynamic. So if you decide that GSEP is not, say GSEP point or 2.0 isn't what you want to do, and you take that out of the equation, it can change it. This model right now is incorporating a $400,000, over $400,000 fund supplement, whichever, wherever that comes from, whether it's, other funds, whether it's a revenue stream that's diverted, whether it's, but in order to keep this fund going, you would have to still supplement it, but you can reduce that supplement. You can not participate in certain organizations. You can reduce your funding to your economic development partners. So you have options. One of the things that's included in this budget, because the Deputy County Administrator position does perform economic development work, and to relieve the pressure on the tort fund, the decision was made in 2024, with the 2024 budget, to put a quarter or 25% of the salary in economic development. Well, even with this budget, let's keep it's in this budget now. If you take it out for 2027, it changes the picture, and it changes what you would need to supplement to break even. So this would come down to about $330,000.
Brian?
Yeah, I appreciate the report, Scott. It's kind of a difficult picture to see what you've just presented, but I also think that the reality is that in economic development, when you start that process, the intent is to kind of work your way out of it. I mean, it's truly the concept of supporting economic development, because you're going to develop to the extent that there is growth out there, and the growth is going to occur whereby if we want to continue efforts, those efforts are going to start to be funded by the entities which have been forwarded or promoted to accomplish it. So while it seems bleak in a way, I'm not particularly upset about this, because this is kind of what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to work our way out of the job in some respects. Now, the question then becomes, as you've just highlighted, which of these do we say, okay, it's enough, we're kind of done with that? And I think that's the reality. I think we're just going to have to make those tough decisions, not this year because the fund's still there for us, but I do think that we're going to have to make that decision in the future. I do believe that there has been huge benefits to some of the programs that we had, obviously the McHenry County EDC. There's also benefits, I think, to National and McHenry County. I think it's been very effective. I think it's promoted well. I think those are all great. I don't have the same comfort level with GSEP, right now. I want to know what the returns are, the revenues are, and are those revenues going to increase as a result of our participation, our contributions. So I think rightfully so, we're going to have to look at these, and I feel comfortable at some point saying we've done our job, we've done what we need to, and now it's time to turn that over so that we can see the revenues, and those revenues should be coming back. So that's my
understood. I appreciate it. And this is presented really just to get the conversation started, to know that as you go into next year, you put a value on economic development. I will tell you, as a municipal professional, as a county professional, it is essential that you make that investment in economic development. That is something that is going to diversify your revenues, whether it's from a sales tax standpoint, property tax standpoint, job creation. It is something that I would strongly recommend you invest in as a county. The question is, in what manner do you do that? In what arms do you pull to get that to happen? GSEP, that's a good point. We do know that there was some GSEP benefit just through, I think, an increase in general kinematics in Crystal Lake. I believe that they had a victory, a success because of GSEP. But that's a fair question. What are we getting out of these organizations? When naturally McHenry County presents the report here in a few minutes, I think Jackie's going to present some wonderful numbers for you, not to steal the thunder. But those are questions you have to ask, is are we getting that true return based on the investments that you're making in these different initiatives? So, but once again, and my ask would be for this committee who has oversight for economic development to actually start that conversation early next year, knowing that if this is important to the county, how is that going to be addressed, knowing that you don't have this funding stream, this funding source anymore.
And I think to answer, GSEP is definitely a discussion point when they're trying to figure out 2.0, what that looks like. And there's always growing pains, but the reality is growing pains have to be reflective of some wins, and so far that's not been reflective, I guess. All right.
So I had concurrence to move this budget forward then?
We did already.
All right.
Treasurer.
Thank you.
You need to take a break? She told me when she needs to take a break.
If you want me to. And you can say. No, I don't care.
Okay.
But I'll do it for you if you want.
Adults here.
You know, if you guys won't have a quorum, you'll have to.
That's correct. Then we won't get to the audit.
Yeah.
We won't get to reports.
I might have to leave at some point during the report, depending on how long they're.
Mine's quick.
It's crazy. It's crazy
Dan.
that judges don't.
You're reporting quick. Yes.
Okay,
Good morning.
well, we're still on Good Morning Committee, so though who knows how long I'll take, right? I mean, take you through lunch.
You got 10 minutes.
Okay, I'm gonna go down really fast. I just want to show this picture here. This is what we love about McHenry County. This is why we live here. This is why we serve. And I really love showing off that picture. So,
Kudos for including the Woodstock Opera House in it too, by the way.
yes, yeah, well, that's one of my favorite places too. So I'd like to have a, kind of a quick agenda. I do have some kind of narrative that I want to share, and really how we're providing value and where the future goes with our office, and potentially some of the revenue areas that we are all very concerned about. So first off, I want to, I want to go back here. Before we get into some of the highlights, some of the things that I think really are valuable to share from the standpoint of, management best practices and leadership, et cetera. I want to tell you something you already knew in reviewing our budget. You saw no supplementals and no capital projects. We've done what we needed to do. We've increased, as you saw from our performance indicators and highlights, we have increased security, which was very lacking and very concerning. That was a major capital project. Did cameras, did an improvement with our security systems. We have made various other kind of improvements that didn't cost a lot of money. And I'll mention those I'll mention them right now. We increased the effectiveness, efficiency of our workflow in our offices. And we had put in the budget something like, I think, $5,000 to help us with our workflow in serving the thousands, literally thousands of taxpayers that come in during the tax season. And it was kind of a mishmash. And we're like, gosh, we're gonna have to have carpenters come in, we're gonna have to put in different counters. Well, you know what we did? We just took a desk and there was a counter, it was made out of a counter, and we had carpenters come in from internal, Tom Burrows guys, and we just kind of designed it. My chief deputy was the architect of it. I was thinking, let's just go to Home Depot and put in some metal cabinets. She's like, no. And we did something really nice, and I think it cost us like maybe $800. And we have changed the whole dynamic of how efficiently we work with the advent of new cash machines that happened the year before and the way that we put everything together. And that didn't cost much. It didn't cost much. And that kind of creativity, I mean, you guys gave us the money, what we asked for, that was great, but in the end, we didn't need it. We didn't need it. Why? Because we kind of look at it like, how would we improve our house with our own household income? My chief deputy and I just talked, how can we do this? What can we do? And that's just the kind of thinking that makes a huge difference in solving problems in a quality way, but doing it on the cheap. Why spend money if you don't have to? So I wanted to make sure I shared that. So that's what you see in our budget, relatively flat, with one exception, HR, and I'm going to talk about that. But let me just mention, why are we 2% less in HR than any other, quote, normal organization? Why are we less in relative to projections for 2026? And the reason is, one, we didn't need a more expensive high-level position. The accounting assistant 3 came down to a 1. We needed the entry level, and we're not going to maintain, we're not going to promote if we don't need that position. That was a $14,000 savings. And that's important because, every dollar has an implication for the future. Secondly, we had retirements of key, experienced, and much higher paid employees. Well, we have a plan for that in moving them out. We'll talk about it, and that's the succession planning. Again, this is what you do, Management 101. This is how you maintain and keep costs down, but maintain high levels of subject matter expertise and the ability to have a tremendous morale because of the value people see in being part of that organization. So we'll talk about that. So I wanted to just give you that overall, our budget is relatively flat. But we're going to dig into a couple of other areas. So before I go on, does anyone have any questions for me relative to the performance indicators, highlights, goals? Certainly we're going to get into that, but if you wanted to delve into it, I'm open. So, okay. So first off, the succession plan that was implemented 16 months ago. I recognized the unevenness in which some people knew everything and other people didn't. And it's not that anyone was holding information. It wasn't that people didn't want to learn. It was just there was no mandate. Hey, we need to inventory every skill and everything we do in this office. And then we need to identify the primary, the secondary, the backup, and it was a huge spreadsheet. And from that, we started to have the basis for putting together what has become a very important succession plan. We knew we had a retirement coming up. Trust is a huge thing. When people will tell you they're going to retire, a year and a half ahead of time, that's a huge level of trust, and we have that in our office. And it is part of the culture, which I'm very lucky to have inherited. So what happens? We now have that succession plan in place. We have inventoried the skill sets. We know the functions that we do. And so now we start training. And we do it through coaching, we do it through mentoring, we do it through documentation and workflow. And what that has led us to is reinforcement in a huge way of skill building and of talent recognition. And that allows us to promote from within. You don't promote from within, and you guys know this, because yeah, that's what we do. No. You have to have years of maintaining that culture so that people are moving in that direction and thinking that way. And you want them to, because you want to keep your best people in the environment so that they grow and the county as a whole benefits from it. So, you know what? I'm gonna say overall payroll costs can decline in that environment. And you know what? In our office, they did decline. Projected revenues are gonna be, or excuse me, projected costs for our payroll will decline by 2%. Who does that? Well, a very healthy organization that recognizes the value people bring to the table and empowers them to achieve their potentials, they do that, and that's what we've done.
10:46 a.m.
So I wanted to make that point. Why? Hey, you guys care about cost cutting. I care about cost cutting. That's a question every department should be asking themselves. What succession planning and all the elements of it, what are we doing to make sure we promote that environment? So second thing is investing in technology solutions that create long-term value. Certainly our Director of Public Affairs, Ms. Schuler, has done a great job of promoting AI. And that is going to be an increasing area of value to the county. I heard a fabulous article yesterday. Salesforce, if you're familiar with them, a major player in the workforce environment. And they now have bots that are doing their sales for them. So people are able to, their sales pipeline is incrementally bigger because they have sales bots that are reaching out. Hey, can we take your order? You know, you want to buy something? We want to sell something. And, you know, I don't know how that applies to the treasurer's office yet. I know I use it on a one-off basis for my own value, but we have to use every tool we can in the toolbox. So, so what have we done here? No surprise. We continue to hammer home the need to improve our online resources. Online resources for taxpayers to pay their bill. And why is that? Well, one, they expect it. They want it. Two, the technology keeps getting better. There's ways for us potentially next year, and this is a little nerdy, but it's very concerning when we get a payment from a taxpayer and they didn't realize that their mortgage company did an escrow payment for them too. And now they're out that money, even though they already paid that money, but they didn't realize it. And so then you have this tug of war problem, and we try and assist as we can. Well, guess what? We're looking at vendors for next year and a long-term relationship where they have relationships with the escrow companies, and they will prevent double payment by the taxpayer. Taxpayer will never realize that we did that for them, but I know that I've done something that makes it easier. It makes it less stressful. It makes them less angry about having to make payment. So, so that is really a real goal of ours. We're seeing increasing amounts of use of online. We're up to about 35% of our payments, and that will continue to grow. Another thing that we're doing is we're looking at that same vendor that we will choose will also support a product like PayPal. Why? PayPal allows you to have multiple payments. So you take a big tax bill and now you can cut it into about 3 other payments. Well, that makes it easier for the taxpayer. And that's a relationship between them and PayPal, because our office in the state of Illinois is not in a position to fund that kind of financing. So focusing on the online payment is huge, and you know we're seeing a little less stress on our staff right now. It's certainly more efficient and satisfying for taxpayers. We know it's far more cost effective. As you know, I use our treasurer automation fund. I take $1 and make payment for their e-check. If they do an e-check, now credit cards, we don't do credit cards, but we do e-checks. We'll pay for that versus having a person right there, fully loaded, is somewhere in that $20 range. Well, that's a value for everybody, and we can scale. We can scale as we have potentially more parcels, more payments. It's easier to do. So that's one area. Another area has just been demanding more from our technology providers. You guys may know we use a kind of an ERP system, I say ERP in quotes, called DevNet. And, they were just kind of, okay, punching the clock for us. And I just kind of, got a little burr under the saddle there with them and, started, kind of asking for more. Sometimes not always real patiently asking for more. And you know what they did? They responded to us, which was great. They're a very cost-effective provider for us. I use Alex in the assessor office, Joe in the clerk office, and recorder office. We all use them. They're great. They're great. Why are they great? Because we demanded more from them. We meet with them quarterly. We're now more leading edge in our functionality. And we're going to offer new function next year. You know what we're going to do? You don't have to be a VIP taxpayer to get a notification. That's going to be huge. Something Alex is going to offer, he'll tell you more about it, is a portal. So people don't have to download a form. They can fill a form out online. These are cool things that happen when you get in the face of the people that are making money off of you and you say, I need more for my county. And we're doing that. We're doing that. And I do want to give Tom Sullivan a big thumbs up because every time I've been a little bit agitated, he's right there with me. And, we work together, all four of us work together as a really good team to bring really good stuff to the county. And that's a story that you might not hear so much, but I wanted to make sure I share that because that ultimately helps us do more with less. Now, I want to talk about investments here. But before I get into this, I wanted to just take a moment to share with you some thoughts I had during our early discussion. And that has to do with the general fund investment portfolio. And you probably noticed we're seeing some declines in our investment income. Largely that is ARPA. And it should be, right? We got to spend that before the end of 2026. So that's all good stuff. And certainly we'll see a decrease in revenue. But when I came here, we were looking at around $27 million kind of thing. 2024, we were in that neighborhood, and just now I was looking at the account. We're down about $3 million. We're seeing some declines in the amount of money we have invested. And that concerns me. I do want to remind you, I hope you don't mind me reminding you, but my office, and I'm going to give myself a little credit, gave the general fund $1 million last year, yet we're down $3 million. We're not up. And that was the deal that Pete and I kind of joked about was, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million, but you're going to put it in investments, right? Yes. Well, what good did that do? I mean, that is a big part of my personality, investing for insurance. And these are your reserves. And they are, I'm seeing reduction in those investment accounts, specifically the general fund. Okay, so with that in mind, I also wanted to mention and share with you an anecdote. Have you guys ever seen the China syndrome? I feel like we had a China syndrome kind of incident here in May. So I'm at my desk working on something, and like 3 of my banking related staff come in and they go, "Dawn, we've got a problem." I'm like, "What?" "Oh, the general fund is down and we've got to make a very large payment and we don't have enough money to essentially cover payroll." I go, "What?" So we look at the numbers. It's like, oh my gosh, we're in trouble. So I go, "Okay, sit down, let's call Carrie." Call Carrie, and Carrie goes, "Are you calling me with what I think you're calling me about?" And it was, we literally did not have money in our general fund to make payroll. Whoa, not good, not good. And so in the end, we covered payroll because I sold investments. And right now we're at a good place where we can sell investments and make money on them, and having gotten the income. But now we're not going to get the income off of very good investments that we had. We had to sell that. And we had to because we had to make payroll, and that's why we have reserves. On the other hand, that is not where any of us want to be. So why is that? Well, Carrie and I talked about it, and it's what you guys know. The economy of government is based on tax revenues. So you get the money, and that's what we're doing right now. We're all fat, dumb, and happy. We're getting the money, and we're distributing, hundreds of millions of dollars right now to everybody. And so the amount of money goes up. It's going up. And then by May, just before we start to get our tax revenue in, we are down to the bottom of the barrel. However, it didn't used to be that way. It used to be that these accounts had hundreds of, it had, tens of millions of dollars in them. Lots of cushion, no problem. We got to make payment for our commitments. Now, we don't have the money in our accounts. We just aren't there anymore. And so I just want to share with you that element of the complexity of the job you have. And that is that you have revenues that are uneven. And yes, I know you have state grants coming in, and you have permitting, and you have other revenue sources, certainly the revenue we provide with our investments, et cetera, though that goes right back into investments. But the point is that you gotta address that too. So let me take the liberty of sharing with you what happens. What happens in a government situation where you're not taking care of, the fundamentals of having enough money in the bank? I can't imagine this would ever happen, but it did happen. And Mike, I think you know about this because you know Mike Tryon very well. In the late 90s, you probably know this too, Brian. And in the early 90s, or late 90s, I think it was, they just didn't fund the government properly for county. And they had to sell tax anticipation notes. They ran through their revenues. They sold what are called TANs, they're short-term bonds, basically, to get revenue to pay your bills. And guess what that costs the taxpayer? I mean, insane interest rates that you don't even want to know. I mean, 10, 20%. Why? Well, because we just didn't bring in enough money. Or you didn't cut off an arm or leg of county government. I guess there's a couple of options there. So I wanted to just share that with you in the context of investments, because that's something that's close to me. Obviously, as your reserves dwindle, your interest rates dwindle, and of course your insurance for the taxpayers and their financial security relative to the county dwindles. So, okay. So with that, let me go on now. Building on an investment infrastructure, and I'll kind of make this quick.
We're going to lose a quorum, and I got a lot of other things I got to get through in this meeting.
That's fine. So anyway, so there's our investment infrastructure, and so this is what we're trying to achieve. And we think this is gonna help us continuously improve optimal services at the lowest possible cost. And this is just an ongoing process. It's not a year-long process. It's an ongoing forever process. So that's all I have to say, and thank you for your indulgence.
Okay. Do you guys have questions for Donna?
I just have two, I think.
Yeah.
For the tax anticipation notes, is there a way to like just establish a relationship with a bank? Like, are we allowed to have some sort of lending relationship with a bank instead of doing that, or no?
Well, yes, but you know, the county has always been self-funding in all kinds of areas. Certainly you can establish those relationships, but it is a result of not having revenue to cover costs. And regardless of the relationship, you will pay some level of interest. And keep in mind that because you have to borrow to pay your bills, you're not getting the interest at a AAA rating, which I believe we still have. You're getting it at more like a B or C level. And when that happens, you're paying, as I mentioned, the double-digit kind of interest rate. And thus your entire county is saying, wow, good job on managing money where you got to borrow to pay your bills, which we all know is not a good operative.
Right.
Thank you, Eric.
Did you have a second question, Eric?
It could be for another time. My question was just gonna be, I know McHenry County, first off, thank you. I think you've done an excellent job with the investments.
Thank you, Eric.
But is there any limitation to being more aggressive? Like, I understand there's like the treasury need, right? Like,
Yes.
we're not trying to invest it all in Bitcoin, right? But is there any prohibition, I guess statutorily, keeping us from investing in the market? Because I know that was like a big issue with pensions at the state level, is that, you know, or even the federal level, they constantly had to buy treasuries, right?
Right.
And that limited the return, where the S&P 500 over the same time generated much more.
Yes. So the quick answer is, one, we have a Public Investment Funds Act, and return of principal is rule number one. Secondly, we do not invest just in treasuries. We do use treasuries to triage, but we are also using agencies which provide much higher rates of return. We also use corporate bonds, as well as regular bullet bonds, government bonds. So we do a lot of things to juice up our returns in a way that manages the security. And I would love for you to come over, and I'll give you some real examples and show you some stuff that'll make you feel really good about the work we're doing to really give us returns within the Public Investment Safety Act.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, Don, I truly appreciate the work that you've done. I think it's absolutely remarkable, and I think it has been a blessing for this county with regards to your management of our funds and the production of revenue. So thank you very much for
Thanks.
that.
Thank you.
And I know that it's a team effort. It's a large team effort, but your leadership is outstanding in that regard. I also think that you've communicated today something that is important for all of us to recognize, and I think we do inherently, because it's a very personal thing, and that is that, you know, people don't like to pay taxes. They just don't like to pay them.
Yeah.
And it's like insurance. We don't like to pay it, but we have to, right? We don't want to, but we have to. So you recognize that there is that kind of inherent anger associated with the task that you have to oversight. In looking at that, you're trying to make things easier for the taxpayer. And I am truly grateful for the strides that you have made. You talked about PayPal, and I'm wondering, is there a way that we can expand upon that, and rather than having this one lump sum that has to be paid either once a year or twice a year, how can we make things easier for people with PayPal or other entities so that maybe we can extend payments and communicate to people that this is an option? Right now, we don't think we have an option, right?
Right.
We have to do it this time.
Right.
But how can we work with a third party to make it so that they can spread their payments out over an annual basis.
Right.
That's what's the best.
Let me do a little research on the annual basis. People do achieve that with escrow. And yet, I know when you're not paying a mortgage company, you don't have that benefit. But clearly, PayPal is that private financing arm. And let me talk to some of the legislators, and feel free to, I'll keep you informed. Let me think about that, and let me think about what other states are doing too.
Is there a way that we can escrow? I mean, I know we do that through, mortgage companies and banks, but
Yeah.
is there any way that we can provide an escrow program for people?
At this point, if we could find a private entity and still be within the law.
Right.
That may be a way to do it. I'm concerned that it would add payroll overhead into us taking on that particular position, if it is even legally possible.
Right.
But no, I appreciate you saying that. I've heard people ask that before, and I've been doing the low-hanging fruit thing.
Right.
And yet, you know what? Let's not avoid the big opportunity areas either.
It's pain reduction, I guess, or pain spreading out so that it's not so impactful.
And that could solve a revenue problem as well.
Exactly, that's gonna stabilize things, so then you have a kind of, rather than doing this roller coaster ride type of thing, you level out the waters, right?
No, brilliant, I love it.
So,
let's, I'll be in touch with you after tax season, and we'll have more conversation. It's a good one. Very good, thank you.
Other committee members have questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you, Chairman, thank you, Chairman.
Consensus to move the treasurer's budget forward?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Just out of curiosity, with regards to the remainder of the agenda,
yes.
Non-Departmental, is that something that could be rescheduled?
I don't think she's gonna take too long on it, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, we kind of need to have that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big one.
You need to check it off.
Well, because it rolls into the budget discussion that we're gonna be having, so.
So non-departmental is one of the larger budgets. We show it in this format, it's in your packet, I know. Because really this is the budget that has this committee has direct control over this budget. But a lot of the things are already decided via resolution or contracts. So as I said, it's a large budget, but it's really, a lot of it's already been established. A few things I want to point out. The very top line for the merit pool, we talk a lot about budgeting for open positions, budgeting for the merit. This is the money that we hold back from the general fund departments. This is kind of where we park it. So you're never going to see actual in this line item, but this is where we look at a department and say at the end of the year, okay, they're over budget by 1%, which is within their holdback amount. So then we would move it to that department. And a lot of times departments don't use that, so this budget just stays here. So again, it's under the control of this committee. That's kind of why we park some things here. This budget also, though, based on the size.
Are you talking about the first three items on there?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
This budget helps with a lot. We have 1,200 employees, large operating budgets. Sometimes things just come up. Some of the smaller departments, they may find like really great training opportunities that they don't have necessarily in their budget. And we don't like to do just in case type of scenarios. But there's some money in here for opportunities like that. So that's another way we utilize it. The other big one I wanted to point out is the general fund insurance, so the 12.6 million. So the benefit fund, which was presented yesterday, that's an internal service fund. So that just means that the revenue for that fund comes from the other funds. So this 12.6 million is the general funds, all the employees that roll up under the general fund. This is where you see the expense to the general fund for that health insurance.
And, you know, we talked a lot about using the terminal reserve at IPVC. So this number is already reflective of using $1 million from that terminal reserve. Because we've seen some very large increases in the rates this year for HMO and PPO. So I just wanted to point that out. So some of the things we've talked about, we've already have factored in. But again, a large number. You know, and all the budgets that have been presented with the general fund, we've broken out the FICA, IMRF, and health insurance, so that just adds up to this 12.6, well, 13.6. And then the last section, just to point out, unless you guys have specific questions, the very bottom, the operating transfers. So this is where we fund capital. So if you see in prior years, we've contributed more to capital. And so the amount that's factored in for the 26 budget is the 2.5, about half of the jail revenue.
And the jail revenue is not reflected in the general funding for the general fund, right? We're using that as for one-time expenses?
So it kind of gets all folded in, so breaking it out here keeps it separate because it does go into the general fund reserve. It's revenue in the sheriff's department. So making sure that we're not using a short-term revenue source for ongoing expenses by adding operating transfer out to the capital fund.
Okay.
That helps with the planning for the future, so we're not relying on that.
Okay. Okay.
And we're doing that, just FYI, we're doing that as a net, because we have revenue, but we also have expenses. So
Sure.
we take out the expenses and then that net gets done.
Yeah, that's why it's 2 point, yeah, right,
Right.
right. But that's why we're 3 million, because we're not counting that revenue
Correct.
for ongoing expenses.
Correct.
Which we shouldn't do.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Prudent people would not do
This is how we kind of carve it out because sometimes it's difficult because it really does all just go into
Sure.
a big bucket.
Okay, all right.
That's how we try and keep track of it at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric.
There's the Microsoft line, right?
The enterprise agreement?
Yes. The computer program maintenance, Microsoft. It's like middle of page 1.
Yeah, 1.4.
Yeah. So I guess, is that just reflecting the software price that we're anticipating? And then for year-to-date actual, it's 281,000.
So
Is that a timing issue or?
I think a lot of that is, it's encumbered, it's just not actually spent yet.
Okay.
On that line item, but I did get confirmation from IT on that, that
it's a new agreement, a new price, and Microsoft at times with their billing is.
yeah, so the FY25 amount is just under 1 million, it's 998. And then FY26 is 1.4.
Is that the line that's being funded by ARPA currently, the Microsoft that you showed down below? That in 2027 will not be funded by ARPA anymore?
You mean that chart at the bottom?
Well, I remember from previous conversations, see it below, there's Microsoft
Yes,
Enterprise
yeah,
Agreement,
the
that's
Microsoft
900,000.
So the portion that was set aside for the ARPA allocation for this is used up before we get to the end of 26.
Right, so that what was the number? 1.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that's being funded by ARPA right now for 2026.
Yes, for 25.
But for 2026, it's not.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a big increase to the general fund
Yes.
expenses. Okay.
So part of that 3 point.
So it says funded by ARPA though until December 2026. You're saying it's already been used?
Yeah, so the US Treasury, you have to establish a budget, and this budget's already been used.
Okay.
The amount set aside. I guess we could
It's been used, or it hasn't been spent, it's been allocated.
It has been spent.
It's been spent, is what she's saying, yeah.
As of today?
It's close. It's not gonna make it till next December. Because the cost is more than 900,000. So we could say, when we initially allocated it, it was 900,000 to be spent by ARPA, but that doesn't mean we have 900,000 for 3 years. We just used up the amount set aside.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been dumping in general fund dollars to.
No, we just used the money set aside for ARPA fast. Like if it was 900,000, it would have lasted till the end of '26, but it's been more.
Okay, so you, instead of maintaining the 900,000, you've just been using up that bucket?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay. Brian, do you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm truly concerned, as I think we all are, with regards to the differential that exists between the year-to-date actuals. I realize we're talking year-to-date, but, you know, and as we look at the budgeted amounts, it just seems like there's been really significant increases in some of these line items. And inflation is a part of that, I get that, but how far have we gone out to kind of see if we can't, quote unquote, trim these down a little bit as projected?
So
and I can go through them as you can by line item, and we can just see, okay, well, this is you know, again, it's year to date, I get it, but you know, maybe this is like an 80% increase. Why is that? What's happening here?
So the numbers at the top, the ones I talked about with the merit pool, so we're never going to see actual for that.
Right.
The ones for the contract, those are our contractual amounts specifically for software. That's where we're seeing the most of the increases. So at some point the actual will catch up with the budget.
Yeah, and a lot of it is still encumbered. It just hasn't been spent yet, but.
So Kronos would be an example of that.
So the money we have in here right now, the 600,000 for Kronos, we're working right now with HR and IT looking at different solutions because Kronos is not a solution that is working for the county right now for multiple reasons. So the 600,000, there's some room to move that down a little. I think the 400,000 is the contract price. But in thinking about the needs of the payroll system and what we're not currently getting, I wanted to have something in here for that.
Meaning going with a new vendor could cost more because of what we're trying to ask to.
A new vendor or even staying with Kronos, they're offering some new platform options. Moving to the new platform, fixing some things that went wrong with the initial migration from ADP to Kronos.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate that. I'm also looking at this one that says, I'm sorry, that's a contingent, 47,000, right? From 900 to 6,000. And I know that, you know, these are small numbers when you think about them individually, but still.
Which one?
When you
Which one are you
accumulate.
looking at? The 400,000?
What page?
Yeah, 400,000.
So that's in the budget policy, and that's really, I mean, like if you look in 23, we used it, that was where we hit like a lot.
General fund contingent, about 3/4 of the way down the first page.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is kind of the placeholder for things that, unanticipated things that come up. I mean, 400,000, I mean, we could talk about lowering that next year in through the budget policy. But it's hard, you know, some years, like when we first started in the pandemic, I think we used more than 400,000 in this line item. But you can see this year.
Well, that used to be $1 million.
Yeah.
In all honesty, it used to be $1 million, and we kept on lowering it and lowering it
Yeah.
and lowering it. And I agree, there's some years where we don't use it hardly at all, but there's other years where it.
Right, I understand.
So I think we really work with the departments and the elected officials, and they do a great job as well in kind of trusting when we say like, we don't want everyone to budget for contingency in their budgets.
Right.
But there are things that come up throughout the year, and by keeping it in here, you know,
We control it.
this
Right.
committee can control what's in it, you know, how much we're spending,
And whatever we don't spend goes back to the bottom line
just
again.
stays, yeah.
So, one of the things we approved today was that money for workman's comp. Would that hit this line?
That
Or
comes out of the
protected?
tort fund.
Okay, so it comes out of different, okay, so it wouldn't affect, okay, all right. Okay.
Good, I'll stop after this, I promise. But, that line item that's on the next page here, and it is 65025. So laptops, et cetera, releases, we're looking at a $300,000 increase there? From
Yes, so
year to
the-
date. I understand year to date.
The 500,000 is the last year of the lease for the computer, so this is the estimate for the new lease that we'll be entering into.
But we think, sorry,
No, that's all right.
we think that there's gonna be what is that? Yeah, a 60% increase in the new contract.
Yeah, that I would have to,
Yeah.
I'd have to defer to IT, and I can get that information.
Yeah, we'll find out for you.
Because then I had a second question, which is, we have a separate line, last line on page 1, which says lease payment computers. And was budgeted for $203,000, but we spent $515,000 on it year to date.
So, those are for the printers, the copy machines, and the 515, that's probably some from 24 because they were not billing us correctly.
That is part of it, but then also, if you look 3 lines up, that Axon, or technology support for Axon that was budgeted under the 605, actually, that was for the body cameras. There was a portion of that it actually went under the 65,000 instead of 605.
I'm sorry, what line?
Yeah, and I just found that, so.
So it wasn't coded properly.
Yeah.
No, so that, where it shows nothing for 392,000, part of that. was-
So that got wrapped up.
Yep, so
Gotcha.
that'll get moved, yeah.
How come no one brought up the wild dog pack? We
knew it.
discussed
I knew it.
$350,
So we discussed it every single year.
That's what I said.
I wanted to, but I was like, no, I won't.
All right, fine, we won't discuss it this year. We'll break tradition.
Yeah, breaks tradition.
All right, go ahead, Carolyn.
Just what I think sometimes is helpful, and this is really great the way it's laid out, but like if the appropriation in '24, what the actual was, like sometimes when I'm looking at things,
Okay.
it's like, okay, we appropriated this, but we only used this, or we actually had to use more. And that helps to explain why we got to 25's numbers, which kind of gives us some history looking to 26.
Okay, I'll add that and resend it out.
And so I guess, I hope you didn't already cover this, but we appropriated 26 million in total in 25. We're bringing it down by 3.
Yeah, and the majority of that is less funding for the capital plan. So remember in 24 and in 25, because we had a higher fund reserve, you guys had a planned spend down of that reserve using one-time expenses and really funding the capital plan that had been underfunded throughout the pandemic. It was a good way to spend down that reserve. So if you look at the operating transfer, the 6.2 and 25, yeah. And then we reduce that in 26 to 2.5. That's most of the reduction, which is then offset a lot by some of the increases we're seeing in software.
Brian?
I'm afraid to ask this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway, I guess. I think it's remarkable that, you know, we've kind of cut down, I'll just say $3 million from 2025 appropriation. But it seems to me there's room for another $500,000 there. So if that's possible, I'd like to see us squeeze things just a little bit more and you know, pick up $500,000. It just seems like there's a possibility.
Okay.
I realize that some of this is estimates, and I realize that, you know, as we make those estimates, we're trying to be conservative and make sure we're covering things, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But at a time like this, when we're trying to just get every drop out of something, that's what I would like to see, I guess.
Well, and I guess my comment is, we have a laptop lease, which we think is gonna be $800,000. I assume it's over 4 years. Why don't we just buy laptops?
I don't, we'll have to ask IT that.
That's like 200 laptops for $1,000 per year.
Well, the
4 years.
rugged ones, they pay a lot more because those are the ones that were getting beat up by the sheriff department mainly is the one that uses the ruggeds.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how many years ago when they decided to go to ruggeds, but they were destroying them so fast that, and I'm not saying we can't buy them, but they're a lot more expensive than $1,000. It's
I mean, they might be, I don't know, but when I Google it, they range anywhere from I'm sure some of these are terrible, right? But $450, $545, $975, $1,100, $1,800. I don't know what ones they're getting, but it just seems like spending $200,000 a year on laptops could be excessive.
I would ask Sandy the question.
Yeah.
But there would be I would think, there could be a potential opportunity for something like that to come like out of the RTA fund, right? That funds public safety.
It can. The board has made a decision a while ago that we won't do that, but yes. The board made a decision that they're transportation funds and they're kind of lockbox to do transportation stuff, not public safety stuff.
But they could be used for public safety.
Heck, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that those are opportunities I think we have to be able to look at. That, you know, we're talking about $3 million shortfall here.
Some of these placeholders we can look at reducing a little bit and then address it if needed when the resolution for approval comes through.
Well, and even when the resolution comes forward for whatever type of lease agreement, we've had the discussion before, is it cheaper just to buy whatever versus leasing it? So maybe that is a discussion that we brought up before. So.
You certainly have to understand the lease, if there's replacements built into it and things like that versus purchases and whatnot.
I can
understand all that. Yeah, right.
It just seems like for $200,000 a year, we could
I
put enough laptops in.
I don't disagree.
But I don't know. I don't know the price. I'm ignorant. It just was something that caught my eye.
Well, you're looking at the last line on the first page, correct?
No, well, yes, I was, but I was talking about like the rugged laptops.
No.
The second line on the second page.
Are there other questions? See, this was important, right?
It is. You're right, and I thank you for that.
I'm glad. I thought all you guys were gonna ask about were the wild dogs, and then I get disappointed.
All right. Consensus for the non-departmental to move forward?
With some consideration for the $500,000 reduction. If we can work to kind of trim things down here a little bit, I would appreciate that.
I think she'll go back to the drawing board and.
I can do that.
And obviously I know that it's things like contingencies and it's things like the laptops and I mean, there's a whole list of things here and you all have done a great job in terms of trying to project. And I know that that's not easy, but I think now is the time maybe to just see if we can't trim a little bit more.
Well, and I think you're probably taking into account actuals anyway, but if we can see that, then we'll have a better idea of what you were looking at.
Yeah.
Right, so.
So is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Yes. All right. So when are we losing our quorum here so that we can kind of figure out what we're doing?
I can stretch.
I don't know. Well, if even if one person leaves, we'll have 4.
Correct, but if two people leave, then
I can stretch to noon.
Noon.
I just sent the message, I can stretch to noon.
Good, however long it takes.
I got about another 20 minutes.
Okay, so we're gonna shoot for noon then. All right. Reports.
I don't have much as far as a formal report.
OMG, really?
Well, I mean, not for
How many
this.
hours have we been spending and I don't have much?
Well,
You should have just said nothing and walked away. You left it open to interpretation now.
I mean, unless you have specific questions.
All right, well, let's talk about, okay, so I'm gonna talk then if you're
Okay.
not going to.
Well, I don't have anything formally prepared. How's that?
So we've been meeting and we've been talking about this $3 million deficit and what we're presenting to the board to try and help the board make decisions, basically. And so we're coming up with a list of items that the board should be considering. We've asked the board members to come up with their own items that can be vetted to make sure that they're legal and there isn't any issue with them, and then put those on the list. So we're coming up with this list of stuff that we can theoretically cut. When we've been going through the list, there are items on that list that are one-time fixes, meaning they will help infuse cash for 1 year, but they're literally that. They're one-time things. Once they're done this year, you don't have that option again next year. It's not that those shouldn't be considered, but those are more critical kind of to what Eric was talking about as far as future budgets, because it doesn't do anything to help future budgets and it makes things more painful going next year. So we're going to be outlining for board members out of these proposed ideas, what is one times and what are reoccurring, so that you guys kind of know what's what. The other thing that we've talked about internally is it's really difficult to get specific if we're talking about reducing staff in a particular manner. And so and again, I'm not saying this, Shannon, but like if we were to use the audit department, they only have four people in the department, right?
Or
5?
5 around FTEs.
You got, yeah, I guess FTEs. So like if you were to say, well, we're gonna cut, put on the list, 2 people out of, internal audit committee, well, you're talking about people's lives. And so we're trying to be sensitive to that. So, when we put something on the list, we're not gonna be specific about a specific department or a specific role or person just because you're talking about someone's life, And so we wanna be sensitive to that. So we may put on there, reduce, 4 FTEs, and it may be more general, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm hoping you understand and kind of respect what we're trying to do versus, playing with what we're talking about.
Well, also too, I think for the personnel, I think it's important, this approach of just telling everyone to cut 2% or whatever isn't, I think, a good strategy. It's more like strategic, like looking at the vacancy list and saying, here's a position that we may be funding, no one's in it, and if it's been open for this long, how are you managing? And maybe shifting things around. So.
Well, and we had that discussion because it was like, well, if you're able to operate your department without person X for the last 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whatever time it is, well, then do we really need to keep that position open? And that's been talked about in HR world in committee quite a bit. And so it's really now either the elected official or department head really has to justify how their department has been able to operate without that position. And again, I don't, you know, it's a touchy subject, right? Because you don't want to accuse someone of being able to not need that person. And on the other hand, you don't want people to just fill positions just so they don't lose positions. So it's, you know, it's a balancing act of trying to be responsive to what our needs are with cutting budget, but also with what a department has to do to function whatever their department does.
So are you asking, when you have those conversations, are you asking people what they, because I think when you have your position down, people will step up. They might put in more hours and they might do other things to help out, but they can only do it for so long, right? So maybe they can manage doing that for a few months. So
well, that's why the question needs to be asked.
And so have you been have those conversations?
Well, not me personally, but
okay.
Or it's even, you know, maybe if this position's 80,000 and we cut it, the savings isn't gonna be 80,000 because maybe you look at these other three and how do you reorganize them to maybe pull them up slightly? So then you're still down maybe 60,000. You know, just talking about process or how we can use our software better, you know. But that's hard to have, you know, to do on a huge global level in just a few weeks. But.
And the departments have been talking about AI a lot and how can AI, Alicia's been doing a great job of how can AI help your department function at a higher efficiency rate in order to accomplish the same work that you're doing. So.
But many of those are, you know, 5 years plus out, what we heard yesterday.
And it could be, but again, it's now starting to think about it. So it may not be helping the budget, but I mean, it's setting those things in motion.
Yeah.
But to your point, you can cut a position, but then if other people have to step up, you've got to, then we get back into the grade, you know, the regrading.
Yeah, but if you cut a position, I mean, then there's the benefits attached to that. So if you can restructure and do the same work by pulling some people up,
right.
But ultimately reducing the position. But we look at that a lot.
Yeah. So those were the things that I was going to mention on your behalf. Do you have something, Brian?
Well, it seems to me that I think we're all cognizant of the fact that personnel are by far and away the biggest expenses that we have. And it is difficult to try to reduce staff when you feel like department heads or electeds have justified those positions and they've been approved through either this board or previous boards. So it's a difficult thing to do, but I do believe that we can still take advantage of that in terms of our management of budgets on an annual basis. And we're going to see vacancies occur. There's no question about that. Vacancies are going to occur. And I think that there's going to be a varying degree of capacity or need to fill those vacancies. So one of the things that we might do is to say, okay, we will fill, and I know this sounds crazy, for which I apologize up front, but we will fill, you know, 1/3 or 50%, whatever we decide might be good, of those positions in this year. But we're not going to fill all vacancy positions, just 1/3 or 50% or whatever. And the reason you do that is to say that, okay, look, here are positions which are not being filled, you know, and that indicates either there's not as much need as we had thought that there might be because we're still being able to cover those things, or we are not promoting and getting out there and getting those positions filled enough. So if you put it in, and I hate to say it like this, but almost a competitive nature where if you really want your position filled, get out there and get it filled type of thing. You know, if it's hanging open for 9 months or 12 months or something like that, that's not good. That's not right. So we need to get that filled. Or we're going to eliminate that, you know, after a certain period of time. So I think we need to kind of build in almost a policy or an approach with regards to those vacancies. And I think that might help. It seems like you're butting, you know, departments one against the other, but, you know, I think it's up to people to get their
Right, but
vacancies filled.
So I'm not disagreeing with you, but my point is, and I'm gonna use Shannon just because she talked about it this morning. So she had a position that she had a hard time filling for X amount of months, right? And because the people that she was getting were not qualified to what she was needing in order to do the work that she had for that individual. And based on the pay scale that we had and everything, that I'm sure that played into who was applying even, right? So, you know, if we were to, as a board, say we're gonna eliminate that position specifically because you haven't filled it, you know, it's now, and this is what we're asking the department heads or elected officials. So what is the implications? What is the, I guess, results of not having that individual filled? You know, so whether it's we don't do as many internal audits, or we don't get to as many phone calls, or it takes longer to approve the bills, or if we go to P&D instead of, you know, a permit coming in and we get it out in 3 days, it now takes 5 days. You know, that's where the board has to come back and hear that information. And are we willing to accept whatever that decreased service is, whether it's internal or external, you know, in order to eliminate that position, right? I mean, that's...
Yeah, I'm not saying that we just automatically at a certain point, we just eliminate the positions. If I said that, or if I implied that, I misspoke. I think what you're saying is absolutely correct. We have to go through that review, but I also think that we have the ability to say, okay, it's not gonna happen this year. If you're not getting it by a certain period of time, or the first 30% or whatever, then yours is gonna be on hold for the next year. That's kind of the way it is. And be able to take advantage in the budget then of retaining those vacancies. Again, we're putting departments kind of against each other in terms of competition, but we gotta face this somehow, way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's
another
not gonna be happy.
Yeah, nobody's gonna be happy, but, you know, nobody's gonna be happy with, you know, us just saying, okay, we're eliminating these positions across the board either, so let's try to use vacancies, which I think is a more humane situation.
No, and I'm not suggesting that we riff, so, I mean, we can,
Right.
you know, we can eliminate through attrition, but still.
Another thing that I question, and I know that I'm gonna get shot down in this too, you know, I know that. You didn't really shoot me down, but, you know, it's kind of...
I don't carry a gun, so I'm
right.
pretty safe on that.
Okay, boy, this is a tough one, but let's put a moratorium on IT program increases. Should just set them off for a year. You know, I'm tired of this. It just keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up, and I know it's going to keep going up and up, and so can we afford to say, we've had it, folks. You know, if you want our business, then you're going to have to come up with another way of maintaining our business. So why don't we turn that
I don't think that's an option with Microsoft.
It might not be.
And maybe some of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
But
I don't disagree with you, but right now, we know full well that those companies have the leverage. They have practically all the leverage. Let's turn some of that leverage back to us. Let's give us some leverage and say, you know, unless you start making this more economical, we're not going to support your company. We can't do it.
Aren't the big programs like Microsoft stuff, don't we do, is that in conjunction with the state and everything? We're taking part of that all, or are we separate? We negotiate the licenses ourselves.
I'm not sure about, I believe we negotiate ourselves.
Because we did do that with, if I'm remembering correctly, we did do that with the election center lease. We said, no, that's too much, and then Joe went back and the guy lowered his price.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I'm not shooting you down.
Yeah. The last thing is, you know, we do have some programs. I mean, programs that we are forwarding for quality of life or aesthetic sometimes or other things. Maybe we just have to eliminate them. And I'm not saying that I would do this or vote to do this right now, but let's look at the broad perspective of the programs. Nationally, McHenry County, for example, I'm not in favor of eliminating that particular program, but that is a program. It's an add-on, right?
We're putting things on the list that are not mandated. I mean, that's.
Yeah, so we just have to kind of think about those things, and we have to be able to say yes or no,
Are
right?
we putting all things on the list that aren't mandated and making a choice?
That's what we're supposed to be doing, yeah.
I mean, I love it, and I wouldn't be supportive of it, but the social work program with the sheriff's department, all those types of things have to be on the table, and we've got to evaluate them individually and say
They are all on
yes
there.
or no.
They're all on there.
As part of that, and I don't disagree with you, but we also have to think about, we have funding sources, for example, just use go back to RTA that we've lockboxed, but could be used, there's money in there for other things that would offset some of those costs. And
Yeah, but then it's just an accounting game. We're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
No, it's money sitting there. It's not going anywhere.
Well, no, it's utilized, it's currently being utilized for road projects or bridges or whatever.
Right, but some of that's being used for township road bridges and projects and non-dedicated
that's on the
roads.
list.
And non-dedicated road projects, so.
No,
if you
that's
don't use
not
it for
on
that-
there anymore, but.
If you don't use it for that, then it becomes available for county business, county things.
It's one of the chair's favorite things.
So yeah,
I made sure that was written on there.
I'm in favor. I've said, I think I've said publicly before, we should consider using the RTA.
We just did a non-dedicated road project, came through.
We, as part of the agreement with townships to do the roads that we haven't been able to get rid of yet, we still have to maintain, and we have to do the lawn cutting and all that crap. So we contract with the townships to do that work because they're already doing the work. So we don't have a new program, but until we get rid of those roads out of our program, we still have to do the work on them. All right, we have 15 minutes, and I want Jackie's here, and I want to get to her presentation, so I'm not cutting you off. I know you were going to keep on going, but.
Well, I figured we'd be talking more about this,
We will.
both of the counts, yeah.
This is such a more intimate setting.
Well, and
I like the break.
Can I just add one thing, that as we think about that, so we talk about eliminating like the social worker program, we also have to think about, okay, what kind of costs are going to be added on at the back end, because now, we're jailing somebody instead of helping them, so anyway.
All right, Jackie.
We won't be jailing them, right?
Oh, they'll be bonded
Yeah,
out.
they'll be bonded out on recognizance. So.
They go through the system, so there's a cost of going through the whole system.
Thanks,
Right now, they're getting, it depends on how it works.
I don't think the actual cost, because they're all fixed, right? It's all salary based. It's just man hours that were.
Jackie, everything's just
thematic.
It's giving me a heart attack back there?
Yeah.
No, with what I have to say, I'll change your mind.
Expense, I'm just saying.
All right, Jackie, you're wasting time. Let's go.
I know, and I'm not gonna take a lot of time. It seems like every time I come in here, I'm here for 3 hours before I talk for a few minutes, but that's okay. Everyone should have gotten or received a copy in an email of our press release regarding the 2024 tourism economic impact numbers. I attached that here. And you have some pretty little things that we just printed out that shows the 2024 economic impact of spending in McHenry County. We're up 2.7% over 23. Our labor payments out to people is up for our staff, that are directly employed by the tourism industry. Taxes locally are up 4.5% over 2023 that tourism brings into our county. If you look at the backside, I did want to put something on here just to kind of put that in perspective for everyone that's different than you maybe have seen in the past. But I took the top 20 counties in visitor spending and put them in order. We are number 13 out of the top 20, out of 102 counties for visitor spending. And if you look at the ones that are above us, I mean, we're not really ever going to probably be able to or want to compete with those counties. And then you look and see that the county where Galena is and Starved Rock and Quad Cities, we have a higher visitor spending than those places. So that's really exciting to those of us in the tourism industry, to see that some of those places that are constantly promoted by the Illinois Office of Tourism and seem like these really huge draws, we're still having a bigger impact on visitor spending here in the county. The other thing to point out, if you look at this as far as percent year-over-year change, there's a lot of counties that did not have a growth in tourism spending year-over-year. A lot of them had a decrease. And actually out of the top 20, we're second only to Chicago in the amount of our increase year-over-year. So I think that's super exciting and something to celebrate here. You had mentioned, Mayor, about how you drive around the state and, not Mayor, I'm sorry, Brian Zucker. I'm so used to calling you that. And how we have something really special here. And you would notice it if you go to other areas of our county. Utilizing our photography, the treasurer's office presented and said, here's the pictures of why we love living here. It's also why people love visiting here, and we were able to provide those photos to them because it's something that we do here. So anyway, I just wanted to point out kind of a perspective of where we sit in Illinois, not just say, here's what we did over last year. So give you a little bit more bigger picture of tourism here in McHenry County. And then I've also attached with that, our strategic plan was just approved by our board in August. So I did a little 2-page front and back that is our kind of just the summary of what our next 3-year strategic plan is looking like as far as where we're trying to put our focus and head forward. One of the things that we did is really shorten our mission, because a lot of people are like, what is naturally McHenry County 2? And it's really important just to say, we're the organization that inspires authentic experiences here in the wonderful places and wide open spaces of McHenry County. So that's our job. That's what we're here to do. We want to inspire everyone who lives here and everyone who doesn't to come and spend time here in the county. And this plan will help us to do that, and it will also help us to grow in what we've been doing to continue to grow forward, what we're going to continue to do moving into the future.
So if you figure out a way to start, I don't want to say exploiting, but taking advantage of all of our solar farms so that people can go on solar farm tours.
Oh, would people like to do that?
Well, I mean, it's farming, right?
Yeah, right? It's agritourism?
Yeah.
Sure. I think a lot of people just want to know what they're powering.
Don't comment on that.
So we'll stick with our trails for going to the breweries and the coffee shops and getting Bloody Marys and tacos and exploring Cary and
Food and
exploring
beverages.
McHenry. We've got a lot of our communities. We do have a new community this year that just came on, that's Algonquin, at our $10,000 level. So they're now supporting communities, so we're excited about that growth. Cary and Harvard just came on in the last couple of years, and they're continuing to support us financially and partner with us to help them promote their area. We've had really great conversations in the last week or two with Richmond and Lake in the Hills to bring their funding up to be more competitive with all the other communities that fund us. So we're seeing some growth in our community support. A lot compared to where it had been in the past. We always had the big 5, but now we have 7 with a potential 2 more coming on. So that just shows a lot for our organization and the quality of promotion and marketing that we do. And as you see in the strategic plan, there's some things we're looking into to see if it's feasible, and if they become feasible, then we may be moving into some of those other things, such as I don't know if you want to. The film.
Yeah, one of the things that the county's working on through PED committee is a filming permit, a filming ordinance to make it more accommodating for film production in McHenry County as opposed to going through zoning. That is something that's referenced in the strategic plan as a potential area for tourism, i.e. Groundhog Day. So we get a lot of mileage off of Groundhog Day. It's been so many years after it's been filmed. So Naturally McHenry County is looking at what their role would be in this and kind of pulling together all the municipal along with the county filming orders, and maybe being that central point, that concierge to any film production company that wants to come and film here, to have a one-stop shop that can help navigate through that. And so that's another role that NMC could provide, another value that they could provide to the county and to our municipal partners.
The Champaign-Urbana Tourism Bureau does that very successfully in their county. So we're kind of looking at what they do. And just after we met the other day about it, someone posted in one of the McHenry County Facebook pages, I think it was Food Critics maybe or something, saying, hey, I'm filming something here and I'm looking for a place to go have catered for our film crew that's coming in. And so like that's the things that people are trying to figure out, how do I find this out? And they're going to Facebook groups. And that's where we would want to be, that centralized resource, not only to help them through the permitting process and get them to the right people, but then help them find their caterers and their places to eat and their places to stay, and even draw on the workforce here in our county in partnership with the EDC as well. So there's a lot that we're starting to just start talking about, but those are some of the things we're looking as far as what we can bring as an added value to the county as we continue to grow and what we're in the scope of what we're able to do. And then also being that centralized resource and shared resource for our communities as their marketing agency for tourism versus hiring out staff on every single community. How can they pull all of us in and fund us a little bit more? We can have the staff that actually does the marketing for our community, since we're already doing it that way. So,
Any questions? Remarkable.
Okay.
I know we have a couple of you already signed up for our annual dinner on October 2nd, so we're excited to see you there. It's at the old courthouse on Woodstock Square where our new visitor center is.
Limited seating. How many seats are left?
There's still more seats left. So.
No, you're supposed to say, God, there's only 10 seats left. You better hurry up.
There's still more seats left, but only 10.
Okay.
Maybe 15.
Okay.
So, no, yeah, so we'd love, I know that you can have it paid for by the county for the ticket to come.
No, you can't. Shh. I'm not promoting that.
I know, well, she told me to tell everybody when they sign up to come talk to her, so. We don't want that to hinder you guys from coming, because it's gonna be it's gonna be a nice celebration of it's our 20th anniversary of our founding. So we've been around for 20 years now here in McHenry County, promoting this as a place to visit. And so we'll be recognizing people that have, everyone who's impacted those 20 years to where we are. And all of our counterparts are celebrating 40 years right now. So we're like babies in the industry, but it's really fun to hit that 20 years. It just feels like, we've grown up now. And so now we're ready to just keep on
celebrating 40, don't worry about it. Time flies when you're having fun.
It sure does.
Okay, so we're not gonna have time to do the audits for an executive session, but next month, we are going to have multiple audits that we'll have to do in executive session, so we'll just all need to know that and plan for that. We won't have budget reports, so that should take out 2 hours of time right there, so we can fill that with executive session, so just for committee knowledge. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 11:57. John and Brian, seconds that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, thank you for those sticking around so that we could